I'm getting too old for this shit. Welcome to the Hey You Guys podcast. We're your hosts, Liam, Wes, and introducing Dave again. This week we covered Lethal Weapon, 1987's Richard Donner Christmas film. I mean, not in the vein of Die Hard. This is definitely set at Christmas, but can it be? It's a loose take on whether or not it's a Christmas film for our Christmas podcast. It is.
I mean, I know people, I don't think they hold it in the same kind of regard when we're talking about Christmas films here as Die Hard. But then you watch this film, it opens with a Christmas song, it closes with a Christmas song, the final scene's amongst Christmas lights, they go to Christmas dinner together. I think it's because a lot of the Christmas stuff's actually really front-loaded at the start of the film, and then it almost like forgets to be a Christmas film for about 45 minutes.
It's
and
at Christmas.
It is at Christmas, yeah. But, I mean, it's a Shane Black film. So it's almost Christmas by default. Yeah. And it's strange that Die Hard has become this kind of quote-unquote Christmas classic. But I'm not sure if anyone thinks of Lethal Weapon as being a Christmas film, despite the fact that it's got tons and tons of Christmas in it. I mean, do you guys, like, I know we've said it before about the difference between a Christmas film like Home Alone, stuff like that, where you're like, I would only watch that at Christmas.
Yeah, it's not about Christmas, but it is set at Christmas. Yeah. There are Christmas themes in it, but the overarching theme of the film is not about Christmas.
No.
But there's definitely Christmas themes.
Did you notice the random Christmas trend they seem to have? Where they had one ornament on a roof. And it was set a couple of times during the film. Like on Murtaugh's house, they've just got one Santa on the roof. And then at the hooker's house, Destiny, no, what was it? The one that blew up. I can't remember her name. Yeah. But the one who had all the time but no one to blow, which I thought was a fantastic line. Yeah. She had a random snowman on her roof. Just one snowman on the roof. Like, what's this random trait of having one Christmas ornament on your roof? It's a
bit of an odd one. But again, I think it's just, he just kind of carpet bombs Christmas throughout the film without, again, like you said, without it actually being a Christmas movie. I mean, but he keeps reminding us, like, oh, this is set at Christmas. You know, sometimes I think this might actually have more Christmas in it than Die Hard.
Well, the introduction of Riggs, not obviously when you first see him, he's naked in his trailer. But the second time, like the introduction of him being crazy, shall I say, is basically when he's among Christmas trees.
Yeah,
totally. I mean, there's a lot of snow around. 100 grand's worth of snow. Do you know what I mean?
Those are great scenes as well at the start. Like, you know, obviously we all know kind of Riggs and Murtaugh now from so many films. But you got to think, you know, we're being introduced to them in 1987. And they do such a don't get me wrong, it goes at 1,000,000 miles per hour, almost to its detriment at the start. But it does such a great job at the start going, well, Murtaugh's the family man. And he's, you know, it's like the Home Alone house. At the start, I'm like, is he got like 72 fucking kids?
Yes.
It just seems like there's kids everywhere.
And it's I think it's so creepy at the beginning of the film that they're all comfortable with just going into the bathroom whilst he's naked in the bath with a birthday cake.
Nobody cares, do they? I mean,
how good is his beard?
It's a great beard.
I mean, he looks like a tramp in the bath.
Yeah,
he does, like they've walked in, they're doing a good thing for someone.
Yeah, it's like, well, we're going to clean you up in time for Christmas.
We brought him, and we bought this homeless guy a birthday cake.
As a man with a shit beard, you know, I think I'm allowed to say that. That's fine.
Well, yeah, he definitely does. Like, usually I'm like, oh, why didn't he keep the beard for longer? But as soon as you see it in that scene, like, yeah, he totally looks homeless. You can't, like, was he, like, in the midst of a week off? Like, I can't imagine he was going to work with that beard, because all of a sudden he shaves, he's got the moustache.
They do say, don't they, you look better without the beard.
So I don't
say you look better with the beard.
Yeah, no, they say, oh, you shaved your beard, like the guys in the police station. Yeah. It's only because his daughter, as children do, pick a flaw of yours. Like, she turned around and went, oh, your beard's getting grey. First thing he does. It's like, I was getting changed the other day, and I took my top off. And my 2.5-year-old son looked at me and laughed. Like, he pointed and laughed, the little jerk. Do you know what I mean?
So you just went and had a shave?
Yeah, I went and had a shave.
No, he punched him.
Oh,
yeah. Dude, my kid went out the window. I drop kicked him.
Do it. But yeah, they have that scene with Murtaugh straight away, and then they cut straight to Riggs, and so quickly they establish, you know, obviously he's got talent. He's not just a psycho, you know, he takes down these guys, but he is a lunatic. And of course, part of that is the direction, but a massive part of it is Mel Gibson's performance.
Oh, definitely.
Like, you know, talk about crazy eyes. And of course, you know, there's the whole thing nowadays with crazy Mel and stuff. But obviously there's the scene with the Christmas trees. But the scene that really gets me is the scene in the trailer. with his wife, and he's thinking about killing himself.
Yeah.
And that's when you realise, whatever you might say about Mel Gibson, we will get to him soon, is how he elevates aspects of this film. Like, this isn't just an action film. This is an action film with great actors in it. Like, I think Danny Glover's fantastic in it as well. But Mel Gibson in particular, I think he gives a legitimately top-tier performance. I mean, a lot of it is just kind of crazy staring, which he does expertly. But when he has the gun in his mouth, it really does feel like a scene from a drama rather than an action film. Like, you legitimately believe he might blow his head off in that scene.
Well,
like, I believe the grief in, like, without any kind of, like, backstory. You're just like, oh, there's a picture of his ex-wife. You don't need to go down the rabbit hole with it. You just see, oh, he's devastated by
It's
her
the
death.
look of anguish in his face. And the fact, as he says further on down the film as well, I had a bullet specially made.
Yeah.
So,
it's not specially made, it's a hollow point, isn't it?
yeah, but he said, I have this specially made for
They're
it.
not allowed to use hollow point bullets.
No, but he said,
as policemen, because
he said I've got a special one made just for that, so it blows the back of my head off.
Yeah, but it's because it's hollow point.
Yeah.
So policemen aren't allowed to use hollow point bullets because if they're shooting at a suspect and they don't hit the suspect, they will absolutely rip through anyone in the background. So he's using this specific type of bullet.
And Joe, they said, I think I've got it in fact as well as we move on, but that scene, they actually had a blank put in there. So you could feel, like, you could see it then and feel the tension.
Yeah.
And, I mean, as we're recording this now, we're in the post of that Alec Baldwin shooting at the moment. Do you know what I mean? It could have been much worse for Mel Gibson. I mean, we're going to get to it. We might have gone, I mean, we might have gone past the whole Mel Gibson's an anti-Semitist then if he accidentally did something to himself. But, like, yeah, the whole, like, there's a blank in there now, and you realise gun safety should still be huge. Even in the 80s, it should be. But they put a blank in there ready to go.
Yeah, but the thing I would say is Mel Gibson manages to do something really, really amazing in this film.
Carry a mullet.
Other than that,
And he does it really well.
he manages to showcase crazy in a film with Gary Busey in it, which I think is pretty special acting.
if you
know?
out crazy Gary Busey, you're doing a pretty good
Because
job.
let's
And he
face it,
does.
Busey isn't mental in this
No.
film. I mean,
he's
he's pretty crazy. When they're burning his arm and he looks like he's kind of enjoying it, you think that could be Busey. That could be just his normal life.
I recently
but
watched...
he really outshines him in the facial expressions and the eyes. You know, he's going for crazy.
I recently watched Drop Zone again.
Okay.
And my God.
Drop Zone again.
Again, yeah.
One of Rob's statements.
like Busey just brings the crazy in that. Not as much as his
Well,
later
he's
films, but
become even crazier now in a different way. Again,
In real
to Mel
life, though.
Gibson. He is out of his goddamn mind.
Yeah.
When you think of Gary Busey now, you think of like these massive performances, and he does have that element to him, but it's much more refrained in this. And I don't think it works if Mel Gibson is turning it up to 11 with the crazy, and then on top of that, you've got Gary Busey doing the same thing. I think you need to kind of have that, like, they're both somewhat unhinged because of their histories, but by Gary Busey's standards, like, pretty chilled out. Like, he's pretty ice cold, you know, the whole thing. Like you said, there's the burning in the arm thing, but that's very much just to display that he's an absolute badass.
Yeah.
We don't need him to do anything crazy, just to show. It kind of reminds me of the opening scene. What's the Schwarzenegger film? Red Heat. When he holds the coal.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, if it's not already obvious that, you know,
Just tough as
Schwarzenegger's a
shit.
total badass, so we're going to have him hold hot coal as well. The only thing I'll think is it the general, the guy who does it to him?
Yeah.
yes.
It's like, how many burns does he have on his arm? I assume this isn't... Because it looked like a planned thing. How many times has he burned his arm
Like
to scare someone else?
He's done it. Like, he's trained him throughout Vietnam, hasn't he? Like, I'm going to burn your arm. Okay, one point we're going to use this to intimidate someone.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane.
Well, what I don't get as well, like, why it freaks out the guy more, that he holds the lighter. Like, they grab his arm. Like, it reminded me of the scene from Aliens, where they grab Hicks's hands.
And do the
Knife thing. But yeah, that's dangerous to him. Whereas for them, they're like, oh no, you're just going to hold the lighter. I guess maybe to be close to it and maybe smell the burning.
Yeah.
But in fairness, if he did that to me, I'd be like, all right, I probably don't want to mess with this guy either.
Yeah.
Although I've done that to my friend in the kitchen.
Burned his arm?
Yeah, basically we watched too many Dirty Sanchez one time, and I held a lighter under my mate Andy's arm, and he now has what looks like a 5-ball tattooed on,
Christ.
like in scar under his arm, and he has to tell people I did it cooking.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. Like you said, he's got a scar on his arm. Like,
Yeah.
sure, he's covered in these goddamn burns.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bonkers.
I will, sorry, we're 10 minutes into this, and I will say, welcome back, Dave.
Thank you.
to the podcast. The last one we did was a couple of months ago. We did Total Recall.
Yeah.
So last week we said that this was your choice, Lethal Weapon. Why did you choose it? Did you choose it because it's an action film and it's the three of us who likes action films? Or is there something... Because you knew we were doing it at Christmas and we said pick a Christmas film. So did you pick this just because it's a Christmas action film? Or?
Well, yeah, it's got the Christmas connotations to it, isn't it? But it's a good... Again, it's a fun film to watch.
Yeah.
It's one of those films that you can just... You don't have to think too hard about it. You know, it guides you through. There's not too many surprises in it. You know, it's a good action film. You know, they're good people. You know, like Mel Gibson is brilliant in it. Danny Glover is brilliant in it. I love Gary Busey just being a bit mental in the background.
The plot never makes it. Like, when I was younger, the plot, I was like... Suddenly I was watching this film, I was like, I can't remember what the fucking plot was.
It's not so much the plot as well. As I was rewatching it, the plot is insane. But I always thought... It was only watching this... Probably because I just bypass it all the time. But I thought... He kept going on about this guy that had pits in his face dating his daughter Trish. And I always thought that was hinted to be Gary Busey.
Okay.
But then it didn't. I mean, Gary Busey kidnapped her and then did something to the kid. But does it feel like an episode of a TV show to you?
Yeah,
like it's just a TV show plot that's extended.
I know.
For an hour
I know
and
you mean.
40
Like
minutes.
the second film, they sort of brought Riggs into it because they murdered his wife and stuff, and they kind of get linked into it. This one kind of feels that they're just cops and they just sort of stumble upon it and they solve a police sort of crime. There's less drama to it. It's not personal. It's just a story, and I think that's why it's good because it's it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. You just sort of drift through it, and it keeps you engaged, and it's good fun. But there's not too much to it, and I think that's what makes it good.
Well, I think the big part of it is the fact that I think they knew the goal there or what they were trying to. Because obviously, I don't think it's necessarily the first buddy cop movie, but I certainly think it's maybe the best one, and certainly in a relationship. And I think that was a big part of the film, was putting the emphasis on that relationship. Yeah. And that is why you have a somewhat intense start where it's like, Murtaugh's the family man, he's the psycho,
but
and
it develops quite quickly though.
It develops really super quickly.
Yeah.
And
they don't spend the whole film hating each other and then love each other at the end.
No.
They sort of realise that, all right, you are a bit mental and I am a bit safe, but you're okay, and it's within that first half an hour. Once the guy's jumped off the roof and he's given it the, are you crazy? And he basically tries to kill himself and he sticks his finger in the gun. Once he realises, all right, you're for real. You're just, he's upset because his wife's dead and everything. They instantly think, okay, we can work together, and you get a bit of.
Well, I think it benefits the film. Like, I actually think that's the most awkward scene in the film because it feels rushed. Like when he says, "Like, you get in here, you fucking get in now," and they go in, and he even forces in the title of the film really awkwardly. Or I guess we'll have to get you registered as a lethal weapon. Oh, Jesus Christ! And it feels so awkward. Not quite as awkward as, and I've got it written down here. Like, there's a really odd joke at the end of the film where it's like they've just escaped all the bad guys. They've just been tortured. It's like, the one shepherd said to the other shepherd, let's get the flock out of here. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? That horrendous line. But other than that that sequence in particular feels really forced, far too quick. But the payoff is so great because you don't want to see them at each other's necks for the entire film. No. You get that they're an odd couple and they're going to bicker, but it turns into ostensibly like a married couple.
Yeah.
By 20 minutes in, they've already established this is going to be our kind of rapport, and it's just like off to the races.
So they rush into it, but then the rest of the movie benefits for that.
Yeah,
but I believe their relationship. What feels forced to me is that dinner scene. When they're having dinner, like he's having dinner with the Murtaughs, and they're all doing this weird rap. They're with this rap and that awful beatboxing. There's no way around it. That's awful. But it all feels like really, really forced. Like we're maybe not the best of friends as a family, but we've got a guest, so we've got to pretend to be. I know they're not.
I liked it because it felt
real,
so. Well, that's exactly it.
Well, just because you don't like your wife.
If they had all been great, it felt like a lot of that felt totally ad-lib to me. Like they were just like, they felt comfortable around each other. I have no doubt that scene's so much longer. And they just said, this bit, we've really captured them all being quite natural. Like the kids are rubbish at beatboxing, but most parents' kids are shit.
Yes.
It's like, I think it would have been a terrible scene if they came out and they were just fucking throwing it down. Like, Jesus Christ, they're really good. And then Murtaugh's a great beatboxer because he's black. It's like, fucking give it a break. It's like, no, and the thing is, like you mentioned earlier about it feeling like a TV show. I was watching it. I was like, it almost feels like the Huxtables, but with guns
and less.
Well, that's the thing. I was like, retrospectively, I was like, could the Murtaughs be the new Huxtables? Because obviously the Huxtables were like America's Family until he really fucked that up, didn't he?
Until Bill Cosby
Screwed
was
the
giving
pooch.
people some
the
random.
kids, either way.
Please drink this and forget what happens next.
Yeah. Some forget-me juice or
Yeah.
whatever the hell it was. So he's ruined it. But you look back, it's like there's a lot to like about the Murtaughs. They've got a very similar dynamic with the older daughter and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So it almost does feel kind of like TV perfect. To me, they almost feel like the Huxtables before it all got a little bit dark and
Will we talk about the TV show later?
Yeah, we will. We'll
we
get
do
into
that?
that into
Okay,
Legacy.
good.
So don't
Yeah,
worry
yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But what I liked as well is like the random, because Riggs has met them once, and then it's the little jokes when they're doing the shooting scene, and I can't remember the whole connotation that goes on, but it's like with your wife's cooking, I'm not surprised. And he says, it's remarks like that won't get you invited to Christmas dinner. My luck's changing already.
yeah.
Like he's already feeling comfortable around him to slag his wife off. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's
Did you
what
really
the whole,
like my wife's cooking? And he just gets into the car.
It's what the whole film hinged on. As you said, like the plot actually isn't all that interesting. And what really is the heart of the film is absolutely the relationship. And it's
Yes.
amazing, as you say, once you get past those first 15, 20 minutes and suddenly they kind of ease into that kind of odd couple back and forth, is just how charming they both are.
Yes.
They're so good together on screen. And has there been a better buddy cop combination since then? I still think they're like the high watermark,
Yeah,
surely.
definitely.
Yeah.
And they're both so likable. And I know there's the whole issue now with how you might feel about Mel Gibson in 2021. Personally, like, I can leave it at the door. And I'm not judging other people, because obviously he said some pretty outlandish shit. To me, it was like so many years ago, whatever, he said sorry, and you can make an argument as to whether he actually said sorry or not. But personally, I can separate Mel Gibson from the performance, and I think he's a fantastic actor, and he has such great screen presence, and he's a great director as well.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say he's a fantastic actor.
I think he's a fantastic actor.
He's
I think
good.
I think
He's a good
brilliant
actor,
in-
but
I think he's
I
better
think
than
I
that.
think he can do what he can do well, but he can't. He's not a broad actor.
No,
let's say.
but
he
he's-
wouldn't go off and do Hamlet and then do.
Didn't he actually?
He
do
did
Hamlet?
Hamlet.
may have done
He did Hamlet.
He
Yeah.
literally did Hamlet.
Yeah, he did Hamlet in an actual film. Yeah. But
I wanted my point. Shit.
step back, Dave.
I'm leaving. My name was Dave. Thank you.
Right,
I was like, is this like a long form joke he's going to do? I don't get where this is going.
I love how we just drug him under the bus then. That was
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
funny. But I'm with you. He does really well in this film, but I can take Mel Gibson acting away from the fact that he is a god awful human at the moment. Like at the moment, do you know what I mean? Like,
Well, the thing is-
what
So
he's done-
Why does he get the golden pass and no one else does?
No, it's not
But
about
who does or who doesn't?
Well, that's
no,
it.
because
I mean, there's lots of people who
decides.
have said things who are never going to work again.
Yeah, but that's not what we're saying.
No,
we're
no,
saying we
but-
enjoyed the film that they did previously. Maybe he shouldn't do further films
I
because
think he should, but-
Mel Gibson is directing Lethal Weapon 5, and we'll get to more of that in Legacy at the moment. And people have boycotted it. He's also like, I think he's been cast in a John Wick prequel,
TV,
TV miniseries, and people have gone nuts about it because of who he is. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but if you look at his previous films, you can't dislike them for like Lethal Weapon. I can't
Well, it's just
dislike.
it's each to their own, because
Yeah.
what I don't like is other people telling me how to feel. Like, I actually cancelled, bizarrely, my Empire subscription recently because there was a post about Lethal Weapon 5 and it was in the title like, oh, this again. And I'm like, no, you can mention the fact that there's an issue with Mel Gibson, but I don't want you to lead me into the article. For a lot of people, and myself included, he might be an absolute arsehole, but I can remove myself, Mel Gibson, from the actor, the director kind of thing. And I'm just a Lethal Weapon fan, and I'm looking forward to Lethal Weapon. And I don't like where they're kind of like, oh, well, they're deciding where the line is. Like, if they do an article on Chinatown, a retrospective, do they go to town on, oh, well, we don't want to talk about this because what Roman Polanski did? And what Roman Polanski did was a lot worse than what Mel Gibson said. And I just don't like people forcing their political views. And like I said, if you personally, I don't want to watch any more Lethal Weapon films because he had these anti-Semitic remarks or racial remarks, whatever, that's completely up to you. Just don't tell me or anyone else how to feel about it. So, yeah, personally, it's same with like Michael Jackson. Maybe he did hurt some children, but it's Michael Jackson. You know, it's like his music is so good that I can just be like, I don't think, if I hear Thriller, it's such a good album, I'm not thinking, did he touch those kids?
I think the way I look at it is similar to you, that Martin Riggs was not an anti-Semite, right?
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to not like Lethal Weapon. Okay, so up until he made his comments, all those films to me are safe, right? You don't have to not like those films because it is him. So if you think now that he's made those comments, he shouldn't be allowed to make movies, then that's a different argument again.
I don't know,
you
man. Like you said, we don't want to get too much into the
but if
weeds
you've
of it.
done,
kind of
if you've
fallen
done,
down a rabbit hole.
if you've done something wrong, you shouldn't be allowed to keep doing.
Well, I like I said, the
In a
whole
public
thing
eye.
is it's such a kind of grey area in terms of at what point do you forgive someone? You know, is it like if you do something, say something wrong, and you don't know? Obviously, he said that he's
like
in
a
a
Christmas
certain state
message
of
now.
mind. I was like, do you just like, oh, you're under the bus and that's it? There's,
suppose-
he's done his times, quote unquote, in Hollywood limbo. And as I said, I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just saying, what am I supposed to say? Oh, that's it. You can't have a career anymore.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about
you
that.
enjoy his acting, you don't enjoy his acting. That's fine.
It's up to you. Yeah,
You don't like his views. You do like his views. That's all on you. But separating the fact that this is 1987. This is
Totally out of
totally
it.
different, and we're kind of falling down a rabbit hole of Mel Gibson as a
I
god-awful
think
human at the
it
moment.
is an important thing though, because if you are doing things that people don't want to hear or don't want to see, then should you be allowed to continue to make high-profile movies, spending big budgets when people are struggling to feed their families and so on? You know, it's not as easy as it's just something he said, but it's something that goes against social convention.
Yeah, and like I don't agree with his views at all. So it's something that like watching Lethal
So
Weapon.
would you be happy for him to now carry on?
No, I've never been happy for him to like the films he does now or anything like that. Like he's doing it. Like,
So wait, if he releases Lethal Weapon 5, you're not watching Lethal Weapon 5, but you'll go back and watch Lethal Weapon.
well, no, I will watch Lethal Weapon 5.
yeah.
100% watch
But
it.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
but
Like,
it's
we
a
really
grey
get
area,
caught
but
up into this grey area.
And we're falling down a rabbit hole of we're contradicting ourselves as well.
Well,
We're
yeah, I
trying
think
to
it's
say that
easy,
he is a bad man. From what, but also like he's a
But
decent
again,
actor. Do you know what I mean?
again, we're
It's-
all saying he's a bad man. I've done nothing. Like he's done, you know, you hear about these things. He's done bad, and he said bad things and stuff. But when Danny Glover says, "Listen, and this is a black man, and we're talking about someone who's been accused of saying racist things," and he's like, "I know Mel. I've forgiven him. I love that man, and I know he's a good person." It's like, well, who am I? Like, what the fuck do I know for me to say, "Oh no, he's a piece of shit. I can't be." But like I said,
What
like,
racist things is he being accused of saying?
Oh, we
Sorry.
won't go through all of them. He's got quite a kind of long list, but the fact of the matter is, it all comes down to, I guess, whether you're comfortable watching the film or not. And the fact of the matter is, regardless of all these other things, I can separate.
Yeah.
Now, like I'm watching Mel Gibson in this, and I'm not thinking about what he may or may not have said or what he definitely said. I'm just like, I'm watching Lethal Weapon, and that's
To me,
fine.
he's a character in the film,
Yeah.
so it doesn't matter
Yeah,
to me
yeah,
whether
yeah.
he's in a film or
It's
not.
'cause he's so
as a
good
guy,
as well.
he might be a scumbag, but
And
you
he's
know,
so
how many
extreme.
scumbags are there in Hollywood? I
mean,
think most of them are.
Probably, yeah. It's the fact that yours has been actually open to the public where
Yeah.
somebody else's hasn't.
Yeah.
But, alright, let's get back to Lethal Weapon. I was so shocked. I couldn't remember that this was the only one that didn't have a Martin Riggs dislocated shoulder moment.
Yeah, it almost feels like something's missing, doesn't
Yeah.
it?
I
Like
know.
the-
I know this personally.
It's like once he did it once, it's like we're going to go back to the well on this. Every goddamn film. Does he do it in every other film? It
Yeah,
feels like he does it
in
every
all
film.
four films. Because in number 2, he does it twice, doesn't he? He does it to prove to win a bet, and then he does it when he's drowned
Just
in
to
water.
establish the fact
Yeah.
that he can do it.
And
of
then
course,
in
yeah,
number 3, it's like when he's been attacked or something. He does it, and then he does it in number 4. Like I can't remember.
He
the
just
details
pops
of
it out. and
Under
he's
the
just
water
gotta-
again, isn't it? With
Is it under
what's
the
his
water
name?
again?
Is Jet Li? Is it?
Jet Li's under the
They
water.
went. Did they both go under the water?
Yeah,
in
I'm
number
sure-
4, I
I'm
can't
sure
remember.
he
I
ends
can't
up
remember if
under
he
the
does
water
that,
doing
but I wouldn't be surprised if we're just making up. In my head, I'm like, I was surprised he didn't do it in this film.
Yeah.
Because it feels like every other scene, he's just dislocating his shoulder.
This film actually, the next film, Lethal Weapon 2, sort of, it was a big defining moment in my marriage. That I dislocated my shoulder playing football, and I went to the hospital, and then I phoned my wife to try and pick me up, and she didn't answer, and then my sister picked me up. And then eventually my wife phoned me up, and she was like, well, why can't you drive home? I was like, because I fucking dislocated my shoulder. She went, I've seen it in movies. You just put it back and you can just carry on.
Yeah.
I'm like, you fucking cannot. A month.
Just bang it back.
I had my arm in a sling for a month. My entire shoulder went black.
2 things, right, from that. First thing is, I remember seeing you after that, and because you couldn't lift your shoulder for a month, when you finally did, the stench that came from your armpit was
My god!
insane.
She had to follow me into. Well, it wasn't a month after, but it was like a day or two afterwards that we went into the shower, and I'd been playing football, and I said, "You're gonna have to help me," and I had to slowly lift my arm up, and I thought she was gonna fall on the floor. It was that bad. She had to help me wash my arm.
Secondly, don't gloss over the fact you dislocated your shoulder like you're a hero. Tell them how you dislocated your shoulder.
Well, I was shielding the ball, walking to the wall, and a man pushed me.
Yeah.
I put my arm to stop me from headbutting the wall, and my arm popped out like a chicken drumstick.
So basically, he's holding onto the wall, and he fell over, and he's still holding onto the wall, and his arm popped. So it's not like you're a hero.
I am exactly the same as Martin Riggs. I can't do it again, and I won't do it again, but I'm exactly the same.
And can I just say as well, the mullet in this is fantastic. Well, there's a moment.
He keeps
where,
it for 3 films.
Yeah, there's a moment where he's on the ledge with that shouty jumper. Like, my God, that guy just liked to shout. And you got Riggs's mullet, and you got that dude's perfectly coiffed 80s hair. Could a hairstyle be any more 80s than those two at the moment?
Well, I was actually wondering, is it even the peak, Mel Gibson mullet? Because you can make an argument for Mad Max 3. Beyond Thunderdome is an aggressive mullet in that film.
That's a Hollywood mullet. They've gone from Australia. America said, we need to do something with your hair. They've gone full mullet.
The thing is, again, you speak to like how handsome this man was, how great he is on screen, the fact that he pulls it off, and he looks cool in this film.
Sends you a man crush, yeah.
Oh, he loves him.
Oh, he's a good-looking, I think there's a reason they have like the butt scene at the start where they're like, okay, we think we know what we're getting.
Yeah. So your introduction to both characters, they're naked.
Yeah,
like
but,
you don't see. Yeah, you don't
but
see.
you see the difference, even though he's a psycho.
Yeah.
Like Murtaugh, Danny
psycho.
Glover.
He's a psycho that looks after himself.
He's a completely sexless character. They're not selling him as being a sexual being. Whereas like Riggs wakes up, he's got the fucking hair, he's smoking a cigarette, he walks to his trailer. They give you there's no butt shot of Murtaugh. That's not a fucking accident.
They're selling Murtaugh as some sort of kind of Fritzl guy, man, because he's happy for all his family to just come in whilst he's having a bath. It's weird, dude.
They're a perfect family. You're making too much.
You brought up the guy, the jumper. One of the notes I made was he was terrified. I mean, he didn't want to jump. He was up there trying to get
seeking attention. Yeah.
Did he not see the giant pillow they were blowing
Oh
up
no!
outside? I mean, don't get me wrong. I still wouldn't want to jump off the thing.
Definitely not.
But he was falling to his death until all of a sudden there was a 20-foot pillow.
I can't talk about jumping off something. I mean,
you've got
previous. I've got previous.
I just find like there's 2 like pretty dramatic jump scenes in the first 10 minutes of this film, and I actually think the start's brilliant because it is a totally. Again, you kind of have to watch it on the basis that you've never seen it before. This is 1987. It's a totally cold opening. Yeah, it's got that classic 80s thing, needless titties. It's just like, we're going to get some boobs in straight away.
I was going to say, you had didn't you?
The very first line, right? Unfortunately, I had to watch this with my wife.
Unfortunately.
She did not help with the writing of facts. She's not that useful. But the first thing she said, which I had to write down, was, I couldn't remember so much boob in the opening.
It's aggressive boobage.
Individual. There's only one boob on show ever. You watch it, and she is just flaunting that one tit. That's obviously a good boob,
and it's constantly pert as well.
I've seen this film God knows how many times, and I cannot remember there being boobs.
I totally remember it being boobs, but I think again because of that whole. These are films I watched when I was like 8, 9 years old, and there wasn't nudity on TV. So for me, a lot of these are like my introduction to boobs. The single boob in Lethal Weapon, the hint of boob in Die Hard. Just all these films where you're just like, wait, was that needed?
It's no Total Recall, though, is it? I mean,
it's no Total Recall. I mean,
there's a third less boob.
To a young man, of course. But it's actually a really impressive jump scene.
Yeah,
like the way it's shot.
Well, I've got it in facts as well because, like you say, the way I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the way they shot it and there's more of it in fact, but
it's quite artistic.
It is artistic, but the way they did it as well, I think it's like a matte painting or something. I can't remember. I've got it in facts.
It just looks so convincing, and the music's great. I mean, again, we'll get to the soundtrack.
One thing I noticed with that scene though is
a lot of jazz going on.
She falls out the window, she hits the car. But when Murtaugh comes to inspect the scene, you look how far away the car is from the building.
Yeah.
It is. She would never fall.
Yeah.
There. She is miles away from the car.
She does kind of swan dive.
You watch her, she drifts down and then hits the car.
Yeah.
But when she is there, when Murtaugh comes and inspects the car is miles away from the building.
You mentioned that, right? You mentioned Murtaugh coming to see the body. I wrote it down that it ticked me off because he just left his wife who said, I can't remember his name, Huntsucker. He said, Huntsucker called you. That's fine. And he gets to the thing, and he says, and the guy goes, Amanda Huntsucker. What was, he goes, what was the name? And the guy speaks and he goes, no, the parents. Like, well, he's about to tell you the parents' name.
yeah.
Don't fucking interrupt him. Like, why are you yelling at him? You've interrupted him with a random question. Stop being a dick. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of people interrupting anyways.
Yeah, I know.
But, oh my God, it was... and before, like, when they move on as well, and they go to the boyfriend or the pimp's house, and the woman goes, right, doors open, go, because she doesn't know the
I
codes.
remember when I was younger, again, like, it was only now I was really paying attention, obviously, but I was like, when I was younger, I was like, I was never clear on why they were going there.
I didn't get
no
it.
idea.
Yeah, until now. But when they get there...
I was like, who's this guy they're shooting? Why are they in
And
the
I
pool?
love
What
it.
the fuck?
Because he shoots him in the leg, right? And then they go up to talk to him, and he pulls a gun out of nowhere. And, like, Riggs has got all the time in the world to hold the gun in the air and stare at Murtaugh while he's doing it.
Like, what the fuck?
And then pull out the gun. But he shoots him twice in the chest, where the lungs are, just in case you didn't know.
Heart, lungs.
Yeah. And then they decided to try... They shoot him in the chest, where his heart and lungs are. He's in the pool. He's not surviving. Why are you... Not only are you trying to dive in to save him, but you've taken the time to take your top off, take your blazer off, and then dive in. But like, the dude's dead.
It's
The
like
dude's gone.
It's like they try and bury their way through the plastic. You think, at that point, you'd just be, get him out of the water.
Yeah.
Just get him out of the water and then see
I gotta
if
be
he's
honest,
alive.
all I ever remember thinking about that scene is like how fucking dangerous those pools. It's
Yeah.
like if you like, you know, regardless of the fact that he's shot, like even if he wasn't shot, it's like he's just gonna drown. They couldn't get it back out.
I had a brief moment when I was younger with one of those pool covers. My dad... you're laughing. I haven't even got there yet. My dad was a washing machine repairman. Before people... Yeah, that happened. That was in the 90s. You actually repair your...
How does this get to a pool?
You repair your washing machines. You don't actually replace them like you do now. So my dad would actually pick them up from the place, take them back to his workshop. So while he's talking to the customer and telling them what's wrong with the washing machine, I'm at the back waiting for him. I see a pool. And the pool doesn't look as deep as I think it is, because I don't know what pool covers are. So I decide to step on it. And I end up wrapped in a pool cover.
Oh my god! So it
Yes.
actually happens. It's
It
not
actually
just in
happens.
films.
No, but then
Thank
again...
God you hadn't been shot twice in the chest.
Oh, I wouldn't have gone. I mean, this is Cardiff, so it's more like knife crime.
Who has a pool?
I know.
Like me.
Moving on, anyway.
I tell you
no,
what, sorry, a completely random thing before we move on to anything else is the one thing I noticed more than anything else in this film is Danny Glover is the sweatiest man I've ever seen.
Not rock sweaty, but he's pretty sweaty.
But it makes no sense. You look at everyone around him. Like, Mel Gibson is bone dry. He looks like he's been rolled in baby powder.
Yeah.
They're in the same room.
He always
and
looks
Danny
fucked.
Glover is, like, dripping with fucking sweat. But there is not a scene in that film where he is not dripping in sweat. He is the sweatiest
He
man I've ever
always
seen.
looks goose. Like later on in the film when they go to see the general and I just keep calling him Gary Busey.
It's Gary Busey.
Was he Joshua?
Joshua.
Joshua.
Yeah.
No, it's Gary Busey.
I quite like the fact he's just Joshua, kind of like Madonna.
Well, he's Mr. Joshua, isn't he? Mr.
yeah,
Joshua.
yeah. And when they show up out in the desert, it's like all he's done is drive there, and he gets out the car, and he looks like he walked there through the fucking desert. Like his lips look all dry again, covered in sweat. I was like, dude, you drove in an air conditioned car to go pick up your daughter. He does always look absolutely fucked in that film, and the complete opposite, of course, to Mel Gibson, who, like you said, just always looks the part. And again, I mean, I know you guys don't like Tom Cruise, but he might be the best runner this side of Tom Cruise.
What made you
When he
think
runs
that-
in,
he does.
he's
He's
such
pumping the
a
arms,
great
he's running.
runner.
What made you think I didn't like Tom Cruise? The fact I called him a human stain last week.
So good.
It's a small stain, though, so
Yeah.
you know, it's fine.
But yeah, I mean, when they are trying to kind of like, I guess, go back to the plot and they go and see, is it Tom Atkins who plays Michael Hunsucker?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, again, that scene, I feel like there's a lot of jargon going on. And now, obviously, rewatching it for the umpteenth time, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of getting where this plot's going. But it all just still feels completely irrelevant until the helicopter. I was just glad to see, if anything, Tom Atkins in the film. He's one of these weird guys, like, I've seen him in a lot of films recently when I've gone back to it. I saw him in Halloween 3. And I'm not sure if you've seen John Carpenter's The Fog. He's in that as well.
Yeah.
But he's in those films. He's an absolute shagger. It's really weird because he doesn't look the part, does he? He's got like quite rough skin. I think he was probably about 45, but always looked about 72. But in all these films, the women just falling all over themselves.
Is this the father?
Yeah. Like, you don't get a hint of
mean-
it in this film. But every other film, I'm literally talking about Halloween 3 and The Fog. But we're talking about the same-ish time. It's just a few years before.
If you didn't know as well, it was a Christmas film. It was the fact that he got popped while holding a carton of eggnog.
Yeah.
How many cartons of eggnog were
He
there?
did have a lot of nog.
Hundreds and,
I mean, it is Christmas, man.
like I said, that whole Shane Black thing where it's like every time you're on the verge of forgetting that it's a Christmas film, he just throws in 70,000 tins of eggnog. I was like, is he collecting eggnog? Does he sell eggnog outside of his drug game? It's all very bizarre. And it also has the quietest helicopter of all time. You talk about
You
them
could
not
see it
noticing.
coming.
I know.
You could see it in the
Do you know how
background.
fucking noisy a helicopter is?
No one's worried about the fact there's a helicopter coming from the coast.
That was Airwolf, wasn't it? He
was.
flicked whisper mode on. He just arrived.
But I found it strange that he went to Murtaugh and said, "You find him and you kill him. You make sure you find him. Make sure you know what's going on and find him." But he didn't feel that he needed to say that I'm actually involved in anything else. And he thought that as a policeman, he could just find these guys, not find out that he was involved in something, and then kill them.
Well,
was he hoping that he would find out and then say, "Because I saved your life,
But
we
that
won't get
almost
involved in
happens.
this"?
That's almost exactly what happened. It was like at the start they thought they had solved the case because they're having the whole weird scene. I mean, it's a lovely scene, but a strange scene on his boat, which he just keeps in his garage, and they're having a beer and stuff. And they had that kind of at that point, Murtaugh's like, well, case closed.
But he
is of that mindset. And it's
They have the epiphany of it might be the hooker, she might be involved.
yeah, but if it
and
wasn't for
stuff,
Mel, who kind of forced the issue, and he's like, listen, no, this isn't perfect. Whereas Murtaugh's like, what does he say? I like tidy.
But does he believe that he's gonna? He might find out he's involved in this heroin trafficking.
Well,
stuff,
maybe, but
and
he's
then
hoping
he
that
won't worry about it.
he'll get him to kill the guy. He's obviously not going to talk because he's dead, and then it all just goes away.
So I don't think he was thinking too much of that because his daughter's
Did he
dead.
just
But
want
also
revenge?
His
daughter
daughter's
thing,
he just
yeah.
wanted revenge. You said about when they went to see the hooker. There's two parts of that which made me laugh. The first part is Murtaugh trying to put himself on the same level as the kids. So he's speaking to these kids. He goes, "Do you like the GoBots?" Nobody likes the GoBots.
Hey, little boys. It's like, wait, you've got kids. I don't think anyone speaks to 8-year-olds like that.
I love as well, and this is not going to work too good on podcast because nobody can see. But I love, in order to move it along as well, so you can identify that he was Special Forces, Riggs all of a sudden goes from standing to the left of Murtaugh to moving around, adjusting himself, getting his shirt up a little bit to go, oh, he was painted, there's a tattoo.
Well,
there's
that's
a-
the other.
So were
That's
they-
the other big issue.
Are
with this
they
film.
supposed to be the same special forces?
I think
is that,
so.
is that
Yeah,
a generic
yeah.
special forces?
So I think
I think it's a generic. They're not from the same group. I mean, there's a few issues again with timing. We'll get to ages and the fact that Mel Gibson was supposedly in Vietnam in 1969 when I think Mel Gibson would have been 13.
So he was 38
Gibson's
in this film, but he was 30.
supposed to be 30.
And the weird one is obviously
Murtaugh
it's
was
supposed to be
39
50.
and he's
Yeah.
supposed to be 50.
Yeah, that's right. So
Although
it
it's totally
worked-
believable
it worked
because
in
you
the
can
long
you
run.
can believe that Danny Glover was 50 probably from birth. I mean,
Yeah.
he's looked the same now to when he started his acting
who
career.
was it? Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman's probably been 60 for the last 60 years.
Yeah, that is the thing. Like, obviously, if you grow up, say you're 20 years old, and you look
One
like-
day I'll grow up.
and you look like a
you
50-year-old
won't.
man, you're like, man, that sucks. But a lot of these people, like you said, Morgan Freeman's one, Steve Martin's another because he went grey so early, Leslie Nielsen, again,
Yeah.
they were 50, but for like 40 years. It was just like they got to a certain age and we were like, okay,
They played
that's
that
it.
character.
They were 50 when they were 20, but they were also 50 when they were 75.
Yeah. So do you know what makes me feel bad? Is the fact that
could be 50 now.
Murtaugh was telling everybody, I'm too old for this shit when he's 50, but he's actually 39 in real life.
which is the same age as
our
me.
age, pretty
yeah,
much.
I find that very upsetting.
Yeah.
That
I'm not that
the-
age yet, so I'm not that old.
Yeah, I don't like the
Oh, dude, you're like a fucking month behind us. Calm down.
Not him.
No, not him. He's fucking old. He's
Not
like
that
80,
guy.
isn't he?
I'm 39, motherfuckers. I'm the only one this
So,
works for. I don't
There's
know.
a me and
whippersnappers.
we all have a mutual friend who's actually your age as well, but she can't get away from because she's a year older than us. In our eyes, she's 80.
Oh, yeah. If you're the oldest one.
She's
then
460. I don't know what you're saying.
It's ridiculous.
She's
an old bitch.
She looks good for 460. She looks like 450.
But no, like you say, you totally buy into the idea that I bought into the idea so much that I legitimately just assumed he was that age. Like I just never thought he was actually 39. So when I kept seeing him in films, I'm like, wait a minute, it's like Lethal Weapon was like 30 something years ago, and he almost looks the same.
But he never changes.
Well, that is the only thing, though.
Weapons,
If
he
you're
never
going on the
changes.
basis that, because he's like 75 now, I think,
Yeah.
isn't he, Danny
Yeah.
Glover? Yeah, but of course, if they're doing Lethal Weapon 5 now, he would be playing 85.
Yeah.
So it's like, are we doing that? Like, what the fuck? Are you going to age him up
There's
in
no
10
way
years?
in Lethal Weapon 5. There's no way they're coppers now.
No,
It
no,
can't
no,
be,
no.
not
It
at that
won't be
age.
that. No,
They've
they'll
got to
do-
be top brass. And
So the only
No,
thing
no,
that's-
they'll be doing like a vigilante thing for sure. So I think it'll be an old case. They'll come out of retirement, deal with it because it'll become
No one else
personal or
can.
whatever.
Have you seen any?
Sorry, that delay in my voice was doing the bunny ears. I realise you can't see that.
Have you
but
seen any Danny Glover films lately? The only thing that's happened with Danny Glover is he's got older. For some reason, his voice has gone quieter.
It has
Like,
gone
as he's
quite,
gotten
yeah.
older, he's just starting to talk like this and like.
You got to know.
I don't like it because I need him to be.
Yeah.
I need him to be able to Riggs, I got you, Riggs. Like he's always shouting, "I'm tall for shit. Get in here, Riggs." You know he's got that great black man voice kind of thing, and I don't want to Riggs. Like I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear super
like
old.
Freeman, isn't it? Like Morgan Freeman is a very definite voice. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
do-
but he's
he
again.
doesn't-
He's always sound like
but he doesn't
wizened
whimper.
old man.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Is it's just a great voice. He hasn't, as he's got older, gone quieter and older.
No, 'cause he's always-
still got that dominant.
He's got that
voice.
gravitas.
It's so
Yeah, well,
brilliant.
he's
so good,
He's
yeah.
always sounded like a fucking wizard.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that. That's the brilliant thing about him. Whereas,
Can we question Danny Glover's choice of how he keeps his gun? Because I don't think he keeps it all the time. But when he first puts his gun on, the butt of the gun is facing outwards, so he's got to like bend his hand weird to pull it out. Like it's
Yeah.
What I find the weirdest thing about the gun-
because it's on his right hand
It
side.
might be
as well.
crosshand.
what
He's
I
left-handed.
Oh yeah.
What I found really weird with that was that because obviously there's that and there's that you know it does lead to a great scene, the one in the shooting range.
Okay, before you go on, I do. Sorry, because you said that. I do love the fact that
Go on, I hardly got started.
in order to be a great shot, you have to give him time. If you're about to shoot Danny Glover, you've got to give him time to crick his neck
yeah, it looks cool.
and then pull his gun out.
Yeah,
So,
but that's
sorry,
the thing,
continue.
that-
yes.
that's-
Does he do that when he roundhouse kicks as well?
Yeah. Or when he shoots
Later on.
or when he shoots a guy in Lethal Weapon 2. But carry on, sorry, mate.
That seems to be like his shtick though. Is like okay, if he cricks his neck and stuff like that, he's
ready.
he's a really good shot. But then in that scene, and like I said, I do love that scene because I think it builds on their rapport and stuff. Is Riggs is still a better shot than him? It's
Yeah.
like obviously they've already established Riggs is better than him.
Special forces.
Yeah, but I
isn't he?
thought
So
that
he's-
was
he
going
can
to be
show off.
it was going to be his one thing. It's like, Riggs is like this superhero, but Murtaugh, you know, he's an absolute deadeye.
Now,
But then he just
Murtaugh's
goes on
just-
to the
he's
gun
the-
range and just nails it.
He's the old school cop, isn't he? He does what he does it well. So his first loads of shots, they're all good kills, they're all sent en masse, and he's really happy with it. And then Riggs brings his shots back, and they're all in the box. I mean, they're just
When
absolutely...
he makes a smiley face afterwards.
Well, no, the first time.
Yeah,
they're-
it's sent to mass
they're all
and
sent,
in the
they're
head,
all
yeah.
sent to mass, and they're all in the 10-point box.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're all like amazing shots. So that's why Murtaugh says, "You watch this," and he gives one dead in the eyes.
Yeah.
But anyone
But
can
then
hit it dead in the eyes for as far as Murtaugh sent
Well,
it
that's
down.
it.
No,
No,
but
he only
it-
puts it 10 foot in front of him.
It's still a good shot, but then it's completely like blown out of the water immediately by
But
Riggs
he's-
doing that great thing when it goes all the way down.
But the thing is, though, I mean, he's special forces. He's been trained to be.
Yeah,
this
I
Deadeye
just thought
shot.
they would give him a thing where it's like,
No.
I guess
never
the
gonna do
only
it.
thing he really has is like a moral thing. Is like he kind of grounds Riggs.
I think he's the better cop. I think he brings the grounded, the bit more
Yeah, he kind
analysis
of connects
of things.
into the real world, like,
Yeah.
and that's what they do so great in the
And
film.
I don't think Riggs is a brilliant cop. He's very fly-by-wire, and he picks things up quickly in the field. But I think, together they balance each other out. And they're not going to give him the shot at the 50-year-old with the six-shooter, as opposed to the special forces guy.
I know all the old guys that carry this gun. What I will say, Richard Donner film, Liam, we've said it many times before on Richard Donner films, we have to welcome back, we already said it in Scrooge,
Unbelievable.
Mary Ellen Trainor.
She's back again.
She's back again.
For another small but
So-
impactful scene.
Mary Ellen Trainor is the therapist in
Okay.
this film.
Yeah.
But for some reason, she just pops up in the... She's
Much better in the other films.
She's the Goonies' mother.
Yeah.
Well, not all the Goonies, but some of the Goonies. She's in Scrooged. She's in Die Hard as one of the... She just pops up, but she's only ever in, 30 seconds of a film.
I can't remember it ever being like a kind of like a leading
lead,
lady
yeah.
or even like being a kind of like second lead or any she never gets 10, 15 minutes of screen time. She pops up, she has a relatively impactful scene, and then she goes away. Like, you would probably forget her if it wasn't for the fact that she's in apparently every movie made in the 80s.
Yeah.
It's a really bizarre thing.
But she's brilliant in, I don't know if it's the second or the third one, she's talking to Riggs, and he's got like a cockeye, and he smacks himself in the head, and you like, it's a losing battle. No matter what you say to this guy, you know, he's playing you to a T, and she's trying her hardest to help.
It becomes
no
a different thing, though, doesn't it? Because the other films, after this film obviously has elements of comedy to it, but the films definitely kind of lean more and more into the comedy side of things as they go on. And it's weird because I know a lot of people actually think Lethal Weapon 2's the better movie. And I always grew up...
You believe that, don't you?
Yeah.
I always grew up, like, when I was younger, I liked Lethal Weapon 2. It's fine. There's actually a nod to Lethal Weapon 2 in this one, funnily enough, with... in the Murtaugh's house on the fridge, there's an apartheid sticker, which obviously nods to
one of my notes.
The second one's.
You bastard.
Sorry, I stole it. But I'm not sure if it's a better film because again, the plot is a little bit insignificant at times. It's almost kind of like just an excuse to get them together. But I've always preferred the first one, and maybe part of that's Gary Busey. I love Mr. Joshua. I love the fight scene at the end. I do like the scene out in the desert, and even. I wouldn't say I like it because it's a torture scene, but I always found those scenes like really memorable. Like I didn't know that if you put salt on a cut, it would hurt like shit. And so I watched this film.
You've got the generic Asian torture man, Endo, who's in Die Hard.
Mr. Nestle Crunch, as I call him.
Yeah, he's another one. Like he's clearly supposed to be Japanese because he's called Endo, but he's Chinese.
It's funny because you watch Die Hard and he plays that thing, and then he's like, "Oh, sorry, man, I'm like really American."
So aside from Mary Ellen Trainor, he's probably popped up in more of the films that we've covered because this is. Correct me if I'm wrong, mate. This is episode 43?
44, I think.
44, and he's been in Big Trouble in Little China, Die Hard. And now this.
I think he's probably been in a few others.
So he's probably popped up a lot more. So he's one of the...
He's not Mary Ellen Trainor, but...
he's one of the Hey You Guys staples.
If Mary Ellen Trainor happened to be a Chinese man, then perhaps,
So, Dave, you mentioned notes. Like, and Liam stole one of your notes. All my notes were surrounded, and I'm about to finish the last two parts I had on my notes. They all surrounded the same scene, the hooker blow-up house scene, because the other two things I had on my scene for
it's a really impressive blow-up scene.
It was really
it was.
Good. But
really was.
it's...
although it did remind me of the other guys. Like, when they're on the floor, I was like, there's no way you walk away from that. There's no way.
I just thought it was surprising there was a plane going overhead as they did an explosion. You think
it's like Lonely Island song thing. The cool guys always walk away from an explosion. At the end, then they're both just on the floor.
Yeah.
But
absolutely fine.
I like the fact that he doesn't even know his coat's on. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, your coat's on fire.
That's it.
Stop hitting me.
But that's it. You didn't pick that up, did you? So as he's being attacked on the floor by Murtaugh, he goes, "What are you, a fag?" Like, so he's on fire. Like Murtaugh's trying to save him. He's like, his first thought is, "Are you gay?"
Anti-Semite and fucking sexist.
So the other thing I had as well was the typical kid thing. We would have done it as kids as well. I didn't see it. Do it again. Like blow the house up again. I didn't see it.
I mean, we actually kind of like step past that in the moment, but alongside the kind of like, lightning speed relationship thing where they have to have that showdown so you can get where you want. Again, to get the plot moving, like you said, the scene where they can see, oh no, I saw that tiny little tattoo is the same as that. Like those kids saw fucking everything. He goes over,
memory.
We're not gonna get the specialist in. Oh, he just happens to find the bomb switch. It's like, oh yeah, this has got mercury switches.
What I love as well, they think this 6-year-old kid is going to draw you a perfect picture. Get him some crayons and some paper.
Imagine if he
Busey looks like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
What the hell?
All he just draws is massive teeth. It's like, oh, it's Busey.
It's Busey's at it again.
What's the other thing they find? Because it's mercury switches and something else, isn't it? No, or is it just special forces?
It was just a mercury switch and the tattoo.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, because whenever I watch this film, I think it was more an ITV thing when we used to watch this on Channel 3. Before Riggs and going back to the beginning of the film, before Riggs is in the Christmas tree yard trying to pay $100 for a lot of cocaine.
100,000.
There was a scene where he deals with a school sniper. Has anyone ever seen that scene before?
No.
It got deleted, didn't it?
So it's on ITV cuts, though?
Well, I was looking, actually, if you look on Amazon, there's a director's cut, and it's actually quite a bit longer, but it's unavailable.
So, I mean,
on Amazon,
they call it a director's cut, but I don't think, again, it's in my notes.
It's just, I think it's just cutscenes for...
So, but I have seen that. I've seen it, because it was on
I've
Channel
never
3.
seen that video.
So basically, he rocks up, he's going to the thing, but it's called about a school shooter, so he goes up, and the kid has barricaded himself in the room with his missus who broke up with him, and he's shooting out the window. And they say, "Oh, this guy's shooting. We can't go into the courtyard where the kids have recess or playtime, as what we called it." And he walks up, and it's just, I always remember the line, because he's walking up with his gun, and he goes, "Hey, Mr. Sniper!" And the sniper shoots, and as he sees him shoot, he's managed to dead-eye shoot it, and it's meant to show his prowess of being a shooter with a handgun.
Yeah.
But and again, showing that he's crazy. Nobody else wants to go up there, and he's happy to get shot. And I've always seen that scene, and I'm thinking, I watch it now,
I have no idea.
and I'm like, where was that scene? I had to look at it because, and obviously you two have never seen this scene. No.
Yeah.
So
I think again, like the scene where he explains the shot.
Yeah.
It's like only 3 or 4 guys in the world can make that. So
downwind and all that stuff.
Yeah. Again, it feels a bit strange that he's like telling that story. Some of the stories do feel a little bit kind of like, all right, I'm just having this in to get the plot moving.
It's to get, exactly.
Yeah, and again, the
story,
film's always at its best when you don't have that, when it's not being forced on by plot, and it is just their relationship, and you're just like, all right, their back and forth is so natural and so watchable, and you like them so much by the end of the film
Because of that.
Yeah. Not only do you want them both to side, you need them to remain friends, and I like the fact that you don't have that hanging over you. Like, are they going to get on with each other? Because as we said, that's dealt with in the first 15-20 minutes. He's on board. He saves his life, and it's just like, all right, you're okay. Actually, you're a bit of a psycho. I'm going to try and keep you alive, kind of thing. I don't want you to kill me, but we're just basically going to enjoy our kind of relationship. You come over, you can meet my wife and stuff, and they're just friends, and it just makes the film so much better because you're not worried about them, and then you can get to like the big fight scene. And I think the action scenes at the end, I think the scene out in the desert's fantastic.
Yeah.
Some of the action there, even though it's relatively low key, not a huge amount happens, just a few gunshots. And obviously you get then like the torture scenes, which I think are actually really impactful. Like I'd never seen that before, like the water torture. With Endor. I was like, Jesus Christ, that looks quite unpleasant. He sells it so well, doesn't he?
I like the fact that Busey kept getting shocked because he's holding them as well.
Like even he's like, fuck
how
that.
many movies have you seen that hold them? They're getting electrocuted, but you're not. I mean, it's quite realistic and it's good.
And even like those moments, like when Mal like finally gets Endo, he doesn't just kill him. He does that weird, almost
Snaps
Nutley
his
thing. It's like, he's like ground, like he's always so angry on the edge of just
he's
going.
channeling his inner Joe Pesci from Home Alone.
But I read a couple of things that there were supposed to be an alternate beginning and ending to the film.
I don't like the alternate ending.
I can't remember what the ending was, but the beginning was supposed to be him in a bar, wasn't it? And a couple of guys starting him, and he was sad because of his wife and everything, and then a couple of guys starting him, and then he easily outmaneuvers them, and then that's it.
Yeah,
and it was supposed to be a bit of a shit start, really, isn't it? Better to see him as a bit of a broken man on his own in his trailer, and they get to show his ass, which is always a better.
As I say, I think the scene in particular with the gun with him is really impactful. But I love all those openings, and I love the fact that their first interaction together. I think it's actually really forward thinking, especially nowadays when people talk about racial profiling. And in that scene, it's actually 2 black officers in the room together. It's Murtaugh and I can't remember the name of the other character. And he actually profiles Mel Gibson, the white guy who comes in. It's not the nowadays you think I'd be like a black guy who'd come in and they'd be suspect, but it's no Murtaugh, being one of the Murtaughs from the TV show I want to make. He sees Mel Gibson, he's like, he sees the gun and totally profiles him.
I thought
that was so
Shane Black didn't actually specify when he wrote the script what ethnicity they were,
which is good.
So that
I actually feel that
they built that in afterwards, so you can tell that because they're not making out the fact that Murtaugh's black.
There's no mention of it.
There's no racial connotations or anything.
At all. And it's so much better for I completely agree.
It doesn't need it, does it?
No,
because it's 2 police officers. One is world weary, one is suicidal.
That's the difference. It's nothing to do with race.
No, and it's fantastic for it.
And you think nowadays they'd be like, you white and I'm black and all these things. Like,
I mean, we'll cover in Legacy. You've already said it, but you get a lot more of that in the TV show.
We'll
cover that as we go.
And I just don't. I find it oddly refreshing considering it's a film from 1987 that they have a black and white cop and they're like, we don't need to deal with this. This doesn't need to be part.
The story tells what's happening. It's got
and
the characters
even when they
tell the story. It's not about the characters.
Even when they do deal with race in the second film, it's a bigger issue. It's not to do with them. Their relationship is nothing to do with race. It's just you're a psycho and I'm a family man.
Still the best thing in the second one. I'm sorry, I know we're not talking.
Diplomatic immunity.
The second one, please tell me.
I just want to say diplomatic immunity.
when they go into the South African thing, and he says, "I want to go to South Africa," but he looks at him and says, "But you're black." It's the way Joe Pesci looks at him and goes, "You are black."
See, we're all thinking
That's hysterical.
We're all thinking of different things. 'Cause that's funny as that is so funny. But all I can think of from the second one is they're watching Rihanna's first advert, and then the dude comes out of nowhere and goes, "Oh, I like that advert. It makes me want to go out and buy rubbers." It makes me laugh so
I
much.
do need to rewatch the second one.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I mean, as I said, the end, beyond having just loads of Mel Gibson, like even when he gets out of the car to do the sniping thing, when he runs, he just runs really well. He just looks impressive running. Like, I don't think that scene is needed when he's running down the street, but like, dude, have you seen him run? Let's get him more of him running. Just another running.
He looks great because he's running. He's
got the shirt open and stuff, and he's got the gun.
MP5 or wherever it is running. It looks fine, and he's chasing after a freaking taxi. At this point,
I'm really on board with all that, and I like the fact that they both got something to do. But the one thing that falls very flat for me at the end is that I'm all in on Mr. Joshua, but I feel like the general just completely has no impact.
Oh, he's useless.
He really, as a character, I really just don't get a feel for it. Like, the whole thing is the Mr. Joshua thing, and obviously they build up that whole thing that they're both special forces, and that they're obviously going to have this showdown, and they're both told about it. Don't get me wrong, the final fight scene on the lawn is bananas. All the cops
4 days.
You imagine if you're one of the cops and you show up and everyone's like, "Oh no, Murtaugh's in charge. You just let him fight."
But you're looking at Murtaugh. Murtaugh's telling you, let them fight. Murtaugh's like bleeding to fight. Like he's
itching to get in.
Yeah, but what I mean is, Murtaugh shouldn't be in the right frame of mind to tell you to stop.
He knows what's
but they
going
let
on,
him go.
You know,
do you know what?
That scene took 4 days to shoot. So
the fight on the lawn.
On the lawn.
Yeah.
So they brought in 3 different martial artists of different ilks, and the whole idea is that they're both such highly trained special forces. They know every martial art there is. One of them is called Jailhouse Rock. I've never even heard of that before. But
there's an Elvis Presley song.
Yeah. But it's all about being dirty and you know, picking out your opponents when they're down, and it shows the fact that it's so, like you said, it's so impactful that that's what, like a 2-minute scene.
Well, I think
4 days of
I know
shooting.
you're new to this, but you're moving into facts.
Yeah. Well, the weirdest thing about that scene actually,
Well, it definitely happened.
It definitely happened.
is obviously by that point you're totally on board with Mel Gibson as Riggs being this total badass, and maybe it's more retrospectively, but the fact that like Gary Busey is totally believable as a special forces badass, like the fight scene at the end, even he's like totally believable
Because
in that scene.
Gary Busey, for some reason, all of a sudden, like as the years went on, after this film, he lost like 4 foot in height and gained it in width.
Well, he said
Like he looks so different.
He looks quite weird. In
when
fairness,
this film was happening, apparently his
career was going down.
Growing.
Yeah, because he credits this film as
saving his career.
Because after this, then it was what I already mentioned:
Predator
Drop
2.
Zone. It was Predator 2. It was
Point Break. Yeah, and
You
he's
know,
great
he
in
did
those
really
films. Again, small
the
parts.
one
but
on the boat with shit with names.
bit more than on a boat.
Hamlet.
It was Hamlet. That was definitely Hamlet.
Hamlet on a boat.
Never mind. Go on.
Okay, fair.
So you mentioned the general,
yeah,
right?
and he's played by what's his name? Jesus Christ.
Is
it
it?
Mitchell Ryan?
But Jesus Christ,
What's that?
it's played by
Was he
Jesus
in it?
Christ. Was
Jesus,
he in
no,
it?
no. I think it was Mitchell
But it
Ryan.
is a Christmas film.
It is. So sorry, but the general, because they mentioned it was a Hunsucker said then we were part of the same unit and we did. Well, it just
Shadow,
made me
whatever
laugh.
they're called.
But we did. It was a project for the CIA called Air America, which always
Yeah.
makes me laugh. Not so much the fact that when this film was released, but after, because Mel Gibson did a film with Robert Downey Jr. where it was Air America, wasn't it? So. I'm watching it now, and they're trying to say
they supplying arms?
Air America was serious, and then you watch the film Air America, which was then a TV series starring Lorenzo Lamas, who
Was that attached to the movie?
who was the dude from America? Yeah, who was the dude from
Gee,
Renegades.
I didn't even. I watched the film once. I was younger. It's not very good.
No, it's not a good
Yeah,
film.
No, it's not a good
Yeah.
film. But yeah, like you said, it's the end. It definitely has like those parallels against like Die Hard, where 1 hour. Am I supposed to say something?
No, we're just in 1 hour. So we
Merry
might
Christmas,
want to-
everyone.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, he's reminding me that we've recorded for an hour. I don't know what that means. But yeah, a little bit behind the scenes.
Wrap it
there,
up, wrap it
behind
up.
the curtains. Yeah, it's like Jesus Christ. I've just started talking again. Like the parallels with the whole, the guy coming back from the dead. Apparently, like you think Mr. Joshua's done, but he comes back apparently from nowhere for one night.
Very
and then-
Die Hard
Yes.
at the end, wasn't it? You
Oh, it's super Die
Oh,
Hard.
Carl.
Right.
Well, again, a big blonde man.
Yeah, but wasn't this before Die Hard?
No, yeah, Die Hard was 88.
88. Yeah. So
Because there's
Very similar
Because
sort
in
of-
fact,
it's the way he's gone and the way he leaps up.
but when
it's actually I'm not such a big fan of like that slow motion thing, and it's like although. I still think that's an iconic shot of them. Like he's almost inside Danny Glover's coat, isn't he?
Yeah.
And they both turn around and shoot him. It's
so
pretty badass.
we need this is peak Shane Black though.
Yeah.
Like this film, Last Boy Scouts, it's peak Shane Black.
Well,
It's
yeah, this is back when
fantastic,
like
yeah.
Shane Black was selling. He was selling his screenplays for outrage. Like, there's not many screenwriters who are as famous as Shane Black, and especially for someone considering a lot of his movies didn't actually make that much money. You think like The Long Kiss Goodnight went for an outrageous amount of
Oh,
money.
we talking about
I
that
love
thing.
that film.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I love
really
that
good
film.
It's raining in a little bit.
Oh,
I
it's
watched it quite
brilliant.
recently.
Last Boy Scout.
Gina Davis. I love
I
a
lo-
tough woman.
I love Gina
Yeah, we
Davis.
know.
It's not.
Hey,
it's
Sarah
not a great
Connor.
film.
Ripley.
Put it
I
this
mean,
way, I mean, it doesn't.
Put a
belong-
knife in her hand, and I'm probably going to shoot
I
on your face.
really like
Yeah.
Gina Davis, but I'd prefer to watch her in, A League of Their Own or something like that. I mean, but.
No, I
I'm
love.
into The Last Boy
Regardless
Scout.
of what you think about The Last Boy Scout, I don't. Not Last Boy Scout,
Long
sorry.
Kiss
Long
Goodnight.
Kiss Goodnight. It's absolutely okay, but the fact of the matter is, it's another one of those like big scripts which just didn't do well. Like
No.
that film.
What's the Scottish guy in it?
In what now?
In The Long Kiss Goodnight.
Brian Cox.
Yeah, Brian Cox. He has the best line in the world. The dog is just non-stop licking his asshole, right? And he turns around and says, it's something like, it's either up there for good or he's never getting it out.
Yeah.
And the way he says it, like in a really serious film, it's just talking about a dog eating his own asshole.
Well, a lot of these films, like they do have those like Shane Blackisms, I suppose.
Yeah.
And like you said, the Last Boy Scout, which I actually think is a really good
It's
film.
great. We're going to cover it on this podcast because it's one of my
Yeah,
favorite
we will
films
get
of the
around to that
night.
eventually.
But that was the very first screenplay or script sold for $1 million. Like Shane Black was the very first screenwriter to sell a script for $1 million.
really?
A screenplay for $1 million. Like it's insane.
Yeah, because
He's had such a
generally
weird-
make much money, do they?
no.
Well, they did back then. There was a period when it was like, nowadays you think, it's a brand which sells something, and obviously for the longest time it was, a star sold something.
Didn't he-
But there was a period when it was like the screenplay was seen as this big thing. It's like, you had to get your
It's
hands
your
on the
idea,
best
isn't it?
screenplays.
Didn't he work on this Lethal Weapon? Going back to Lethal Weapon, didn't he work on Lethal Weapon whilst he was doing Predator?
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, because they brought him onto Predator to do on-set
On-site,
screenwrites, but they didn't really need it. So he just sat there on his days up, like when he wasn't filming, just writing Lethal Weapon.
He's just had such a weird career because he kind of went away for a long time then. Then he came back again, another film which I love, but didn't
Kiss,
do-
Kiss, Bang, Bang.
It's a great film,
Oh,
but
I fucking love it.
But nobody watched it.
No.
It didn't make any money. And then just out of the blue, he gets the keys to fucking Iron Man 3, and that makes like over $1 billion. And don't get me wrong, I think Iron Man 3 is one of the more interesting Marvel films for sure. But then even after that, then you're like, he's back. They've given him Predator. It's like, oh my god, Shane Black's going to write the new Predator. This is going to be amazing. And it was an absolute piece of shit.
Well, the last
it was okay.
third was...
It's
Come
like,
on.
it is an appalling film. It is truly an appalling film.
It's a good watch until the end.
It's not at all. Like I went back and I watched Predators not too long ago. Predators is a perfect.
Predators is great.
Is a perfect
I love
decent
No,
film.
but Predators is a remake.
Yeah,
when
but
when did they ever say it is?
Predators to Predator is kind of like what Terminator 3 is to Terminator 2. It's an okay
Wait,
film.
there's a
Shut the fuck up.
There's a Terminator 3?
Terminator 3 is an okay film.
No,
It just
no,
happens
no,
to be
no.
a poorer version of Terminator. It's like a poor and pointless remake of Terminator 2. And that's how I feel about Predator. Don't get me wrong. I actually think
Predators just take the best bits of the previous films and then just try and redo it all over again.
Well, that's what they do. It's the same in Terminator 3. I mean, it's
but it's
the
absolute
same
dog
film.
shit.
It's not complete dog
It's,
shit.
it's
dog
not
shit.
good.
It's probably
They've tried to make
the
it
fourth
funny
best.
with the stupid goggles, the
Yeah, no,
glasses
that
he puts
that
on
didn't
and all
work.
that
But
nonsense.
like the scene on the bridge, like when the crane
As
goes
soon
through
as
the
they
building,
brought
that's some
in
good stuff.
that guy to play John Connor,
He was
Star.
I was done.
The end was fantastic.
I mean,
though. I love the end.
I hate to bring it back, but Lethal Weapon, yeah?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
The one thing I did read was Shane Black's original screenplay was way, way darker than the film.
Yeah.
And I think that they probably cut out enough of that to make it a good film for mass audience. But I would like to have seen what Shane Black had, because it was a lot more of the special forces, flashbacks from Nam and stuff.
I don't think I need that. I think there's more than enough. You get very quickly that he's clearly a very tortured soul. I don't need any more of that. I want to get into the relationship with those two. I want it to be fun, but obviously with an edge. And that's maybe why I prefer this film, maybe more than the others, because I think this one's got the most edge, the most threat. Although one thing I'll say is in nearly every film, they get fucked up. They get battered in almost every single film.
And that's what I said.
And I'm not talking like scratches or a few punches. They get shot. I mean, he's almost dead in the second film, Riggs. Jesus Christ.
But that's the same with Die Hard as well. Lethal Weapon and Die Hard made your hero vulnerable. Like, they weren't just Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, where they destroy everything in their path. They are men who just... They've got their own issues, and they have to fight through this. And like I said, they're vulnerable.
Because he's vulnerable in a different way. Like you say, with John McClane, the idea is that he's pretty much he's just a cop. He's just an everyday cop. Whereas obviously in this, Mel Gibson is almost he can do amazing things. And he's a special forces guy. But you didn't see Schwarzenegger having a mental breakdown.
No.
You never saw Sylvester Stallone with a gun in his mouth, ready to pull the trigger. And again, I think because those guys don't have the range. And that's why
I would say the first Rambo.
There are elements.
But that was
First Blood.
He has a breakdown. That's probably the best acting he's ever done.
Yeah, but we've talked about this before. Rambo 1 belongs to a different era and a different film series. Like when most people think of Rambo, you think of Rambo 2 and you think of Rambo 3. If you go back and again, we really want to do First Blood.
But again, First Blood is 70s. So.
It's not. It's 1982.
Is it 82? I thought it was 79.
No. It's filmed. It's released in 1982, but the book was written in the 70s.
Okay.
And it has not only does it have a 70s feel because the book was written in the 70s, and it's very much about Vietnam vets coming back. But on top of that, and we've mentioned it a few times. Even 48 Hours had a hint of this because it's 1982. It still feels like a 70s film. Yeah. It feels like a film which belongs still to the previous, I think we mentioned it before. Yeah. And it's not just because of the recent films we've done. I think it was around 1984 that 80s films really started feeling what we think of as being 80s films. Yeah. But like you said, you go back and watch 40 Hours, sure, it's got Eddie Murphy and stuff. But the look of it, the vibe of it, it feels like a 70s film. And it's exactly the same as First Blood. Again, we're doing everything but talking about Lethal Weapon. But Lethal Weapon very much does feel like an 80s
So going back to Lethal Weapon, you said about Riggs and being vulnerable. What I really, really liked is the fact that it doesn't explain what happened to his wife. It's just, I miss you.
That's what I mean,
you don't need it.
No.
And, all right, they go into it in more detail. And as you've already alluded to, Dave, is the fact that Lethal Weapon 2 is more around what happened. You bring the guy that killed his wife. Yeah. But in this one, I miss you. I miss you so much that every day I want to kill myself. But there's something that's making me not want to do it. Yeah. All right, I've met a new friend that's making me want to live on. Exactly. And you don't need that backstory. And that's what I think Shane Black does well in these kind of things, especially in his early career, is the fact that you can go into depth in something, but there's other things that you don't need to go depth. Just look at that, right? We'll brush on that, but we'll move forward.
To give you the story,
exactly, and it moves it forward. That's great. Mel Gibson or Riggs in this one is crazy. He's crazy because he's lost his wife. You don't need to know why he lost his wife. Okay, it's just move on. Let's get to it. And I think that's really good, and I think it's done really well.
Yeah, well, it's a thing that keeps popping up in this podcast is. You go back to watch a lot of these films in the 80s and you'll notice the vast majority are somewhere between like 90, 100, 115 minutes, 110 minutes, something like that. It's like there's a propulsiveness to a lot of these films where they're like, all right, even if it means we have to cut some things out, we don't have to explain everything, the emphasis is on keeping the movie moving along, essentially. Yeah. And it does clip along despite these things. And as you already mentioned, I'm not saying I wouldn't have enjoyed those scenes. But if you go back and you have more scenes of him, like you said, back in the Special Forces, scenes with his wife. It's just going to slow the film down.
Yeah.
They the emphasis here is on Riggs and Murtaugh. The quicker we get there, the better this film's going to be. And they knew they had something special, and they got everything they could out of it.
They do fire through that story, don't they? And then they get
100%.
another story done afterwards. So
You
within that,
can even feel people getting bored as they're delivering exposition. It's like, just get on with it. It doesn't matter.
and films these days they always do that, don't they? Try and get too much in, and then you kind of lose momentum, and you're not really doing anything.
Well, everyone's overthinking things. Everything's created by committee. It's like, oh, well, everyone understand this. And it's the reason, say, like Dune, which I watched recently. Like, Dune's a fantastic bit of screenwriting because it's so minimal. Because they were just like, we don't need to have reams and reams of dialogue. We'll just give you suggestions of what's going on in this world. And you can fill in the gaps. And if there's tons of information out there if you want to dig deeper. But we're just going to... The emphasis is always on character. It's always on keeping things moving. And that's one of the great things that this film does. So
I think we should move on to the...
Yeah, we need to get...
I think we should move on to the next sections. But before we do, is there anything left on your notes? Because I've covered all my notes. Is there anything left on your notes you want to cover before we move on to the next sections?
I'm good.
Dave?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so what's the next section? Is soundtrack, isn't it? So we'll move on to soundtrack. Actually, sorry, I said soundtrack, but it's facts next, isn't it?
It is usually facts. It is usually facts.
Sorry, you'll have to forgive me. I'm not in the right frame of mind. All right, so moving on to facts. Anyone else got any before I go into the plethora of mine?
No, this is your realm. Go for it.
Yeah, okay, so the first one, Mel Gibson and Bruce Willis were considered for each other's roles in Lethal Weapon and Die Hard, respectively. Both movies were produced by Joel Silver, with music by Michael Kamen.
It's such a Joel Silver film as well. Such a Joel Silver
Willis was offered the role of Martin Riggs, but turned it down, and a year later he did Die Hard. Gibson was considered to play John McClane, along with his co-stars from The Expendables 3, Harrison Ford, Sylvester Stallone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I think they both could have done... I think they both would have worked.
Yeah,
Either
I mean,
way.
the character, like the actors back then, I mean, seeing Bruce Willis as Riggs might have been a different take on it, but I think it'd be alright.
Oddly, I think Mel Gibson would be better in Die Hard than Bruce Willis would be in Lethal Weapon, oddly, but I'm not sure if I've got anything to back that up.
It's like you said earlier, isn't it? You get so used to watching someone in a role.
It's hard to
watch someone else do it. It doesn't work.
No,
He might
other way
well have been
around, 30 years later, we'd have been saying, you can't see Bruce Willis.
We're talking about, again, talented actors here. They aren't just like, it's not like, oh, we're swapping Sylvester Stallone. And I know Sylvester Stallone has been good in a lot of films. But, for Arnold Schwarzenegger, you just can't see it. But with these guys, I'm like, I think they could do both roles 100%.
Yeah.
So, coincidentally, the script for Die Hard with a Vengeance was briefly considered to be filmed as a Lethal Weapon sequel. So,
But it's weird because it doesn't actually feel much like a Die Hard film, does it? Like, it does feel quite unique.
Yeah.
Like, the
Story on its
structure and
own,
everything.
isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Although that film does lean very heavily into the whole race thing. Although in an admittedly unique way, because it's the other way around,
So you mentioned The Fall by Hunsucker, Amanda Hunsucker, who was played by Jackie Swanson. So she performed the high fall on her own. She was trained by legendary stuntman Dar Robinson. The stunt was done using an airbag covered with a life-size painting of the driveway and cars, which, like a foreground miniature, visually blends into the real scene. Thus, the editor is able to hold the shot until just as she makes contact with the airbag for greater realism.
That's awesome.
So that's, as you say, because it looked so good. Because
it looks amazing.
He's able to keep it longer because just before she... Because I love it. They got an airbag and they just covered it with a painting of the floor. I think that's great.
Well, in fairness, she does look like she hit an airbag. That's the only thing I'll say is she makes for a very pretty corpse. I'm thinking she jumped from, what is she, like 30, 40 stories up?
Yeah.
And she lands on a car. I think it's a little bit messier than the scene we see. Especially considering she's
Still
wearing
just has one boob out.
all white
Only
as
the one.
well, yeah.
Only the one
Only
move.
the one.
So it's the first movie, I can't believe we didn't mention this, the first movie to show a modern cell phone.
Oh, this is one of mine.
It was a portable Radio Shack Model
Portable, just
17-1003, launched circa 1986.
You have to carry the
I just
separate
love that-
battery like a backpack.
I just love the fact that even then he didn't understand the concept of a mobile phone. Like he takes the call on a bridge and he's talking about Riggs, even though Riggs is still only standing about 2.5 foot from him. I'm like, dude, you realise you could have gone, I don't know, around the fucking corner or done it when you got home.
Although in fairness, cell signal back in those days was pretty shit. You got to stand where you got to stand.
Yeah, it was definitely my first mobile scene, that's for sure.
So Mel Gibson turned down starring roles in The Fly and The Untouchables in order to do this movie.
I couldn't have him in The Fly.
So as we've literally just said about being in Die Hard, I'd seen him in The Fly or even seen him in Touchables.
Who was he playing The Untouchables?
Well, I'm assuming maybe...
the lead role.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Kevin Costner's role.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine him in Sean Connery's role.
No, absolutely not. Although he'd probably do a better Irish accent than Sean Connery playing it, so I'll give him
Well, he
that.
would do one.
Yeah.
I mean, Sean Connery did a fantastic Spanish-Egyptian accent. in
Oh,
Highlander,
yeah, he
didn't
really
as we
did.
already said,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
So, in the scene where Riggs is contemplating suicide, there's an actual bullet blank in the chamber, which Mel Gibson was pointing at his head, thinking that it would allow for a greater sense of portraying the scene realistically and dramatically. We might also be saying Mel Gibson was a great actor before he shot himself in the head during
Well, you
that
can
film,
imagine
didn't he?
even if there's the danger of, you think, if I pull this, is it going to make a bang? It would make you more wary. It'd be easier to act in the scene, almost like you're kind of like, Jesus Christ, if I actually do pull the trigger.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's down to fantastic acting, but maybe it played its part.
So I just said that Jackie Swanson performed the high fall on her own. She was trained by legendary stuntman Dar Robinson. Dar Robinson was killed in a motorcycle accident shortly after principal photography, so director Richard Donner dedicated the film to him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a bit somber. Mel Gibson was only 30 when the movie was filmed, although his character Riggs was supposed to be 38. We've already said
But
that.
it's just to make it make sense for Vietnam.
Yeah.
Because as I said, if you were going based on Mel Gibson's age, in 1969, when he had a run-in with Shadow Company, he would have been like 13 years old. Which I know he's a badass, but he's not that fucking badass. Even when operations ended in Vietnam was like 1973 or something, so he would have been like 17. It just doesn't add up.
So, one of the original directors considered for this, Leonard Nimoy.
Really?
Yeah. Leonard Nimoy was one of the choices considered for directing, but he didn't feel comfortable doing action movies, and he was working on Three Men and a Baby at the time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is a good director, and he's Three Men and a Baby
Great film.
is actually really good film. But yeah, he's
Very
not
different.
He's not the most obvious choice, especially if he's like, I don't really do action. Well, maybe you don't do a film called Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
And wait, is the title ironic? No, it's pretty on the ball, on the nose. Sorry, on the ball. Jesus,
So,
don't know what I mean.
there's great tension between Gary Busey and Mel Gibson, especially at the fight scene and everything. Do you know this one?
Maybe.
Yeah. So, there's great tension. So how do you create that great tension on set?
Mm-hmm.
You do that by telling both Gary Busey and Mel Gibson it was the other person who kept eating the last waffle.
Whatever it takes. It's pretty low key in fairness, but yeah, if you want to build tension, I'm not sure how long that's going to last.
I mean, they both love waffles.
Yeah, if
I
they
mean,
love
honestly,
waffles, fair enough.
I mean, if it was chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles.
Chicken and waffles.
It is nice though, isn't it? It sounds like a weird combination. Why are you shaking your head? Do you have like a weird chicken and who has a weird chicken and waffle story and they come from Cardiff? Bizarre.
The prop Beretta 92F Mel Gibson uses in this film is the same prop gun that would be used by Bruce Willis in Die Hard. The gun has since been retired. I will say, Dave, you keep throwing your hands in the air, and I asked before I went on to facts if anyone else has facts, and you could have gone first.
Yeah, but I wasn't listening. I just I went along with it.
Right, finish your facts.
These
before
are
I
my
go.
facts.
Any more facts for you, Dave?
I've got an interesting fact. The Heckler and Koch PSG rifle that Riggs used in the desert, there were only 2 of these because this was a brand new concept weapon made by Heckler and Koch, and they were both 10 grand each. But when they did the scene, they couldn't get the tripod that fitted the gun in time, so the stunt department welded on a 3-point tripod, and they then had to buy the 10 grand gun at the end of it because they'd ruined it, so they couldn't put it back in the showroom.
Oh, so it was a rental.
It was a
but
rental.
Then they went and just kind of welded.
So they welded another tripod onto it because they couldn't get the real one.
So you can't get a refund. Why not? Well,
So
you
that cost
welded something to it, you idiot.
That cost them 10 grand. You've done my other one. You've done the ages.
Was that needed? A 10 grand gun? Like, they don't show it up. We talked, like, obviously we did the Wraith not too long ago. And the Wraith is the thing in the car. Like, you need that supercar. Regardless of how much it costs, it's such a big part of the film. I don't think anyone, other than Dave, because he's a lunatic, was looking at that and going, oh, that's a really nice sniper rifle, bro. That's a really nice sniper rifle. I just feel like it just could have been a bog standard
What they
off the
decided
shelf.
was they wanted the most up-to-date weapons in the film.
Okay.
To make it a spectacle. So that's why they brought it in. So this PSG rifle, there were 2 in the world, and they ruined it by welding something onto it.
It's where my head is. You keep saying PSG, and I just keep thinking of Paris
Yes,
Saint-Germain.
that's right. Yeah. Even I got that reference.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, yeah, well, that's where we are.
So not really a fact, but something I noticed was when they flipped the general's car, if you look closely, you can see two cutouts on the bottom of the where they actually flipped the car.
Oh yeah.
So they had to basically two cannons underneath it where they flipped it up.
Oh yeah.
And there's just two massive holes in the bottom of the car where you can see where they've done that. And this isn't really a fact, but it is a fact that Gary Busey is generally the most bullshit crazy person I've ever seen in any movie ever. Maybe not in this film.
He's definitely not in this
Gary
film.
Busey's just fucking nuts, so that's a fact.
He is nuts, but it is interesting that like this was my introduction to the world of Gary Busey, and it was super low key. You think,
was,
he's probably a pretty level headed.
He's actually more crazy in real life than he is in film.
100%. I've seen those Facebook
Just
clips.
follow him around.
But there's a documentary about him as well. He's insane, but he even looks insane when he does the biopic of died in a plane crash with Richie Valens, Buddy Holly.
Yeah.
And he looks insane in that. I let you go on with facts because I was saying about you going in, but that was I have no facts. My last actual fact was dislocated shoulder in the rest of the film, so then we've already done that.
All right,
so we can move on to the next section.
So is that soundtrack next?
Well, I've already said soundtrack, so let's move on.
Let's
to
move on to
soundtrack.
let's do soundtrack. Well, I actually think the soundtrack to this film is really good, and it's. Sorry, you're about to cut.
Yeah, sorry, I've never noticed before until this one that it says soundtrack performed by Eric Clapton.
Yeah, I never noticed. It is literally
never noticed that either. It couldn't be any more Clapton if it tried. The guitar licks.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think.
Typical early 90s, late 80s Clapton with a little bit of sax in the back. Slightly jazzy.
Well, that's where I think David Sanborn, because it's Michael Kamen, David Sanborn, and I think Sanborn is the sax man, and there is a lot of sax in this. But when I do think of this film, I always think of that Eric Clapton guitar riff, like.
It couldn't be any more Clapton.
It's just the Riggs tune, isn't it, basically? And it keeps coming up all the way through. But as I'm watching, I'm like, man, there's a lot of saxophone in this film. There's a lot of... It's got a really unique score, but it totally works and gives it a somewhat unique vibe, I think.
Nearly had a saxophonist at my wedding, didn't I? Like, randomly. Like, the DJ came with a saxophonist.
The only acceptable saxophonist is the one from Lost Boys. That's the only one.
If the guy at my wedding didn't come in, oiled up, going, I still believe!
I would
then
have
I
to
didn't
do that,
walk.
like the chain and everything. But no, I think it does have a somewhat unique tone. And a big part of that does bizarrely come from Eric Clapton. Because like you said, I'm the exact same as you guys. I had no idea Eric Clapton worked on the score for this film.
I'm a huge Cream fan as well. I've listened to him for donkey's years. I never put two and two together. But we were looking through the names coming up and Clapton came up. And as soon as I knew, you're like, how have I never noticed that?
Yeah, because the first thing, like you say Clapton, and then you hear the...
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's so Clapton, yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But it's funny because although it's Clapton doing this and it's a film set at Christmas, you don't get his Christmas song.
You don't.
Yeah.
But there are other ones. I mean...
Clapton did a Christmas song. You're looking at me strange, Dave, but Clapton did a Christmas song, yeah.
I mean, there are a whole... I mean, like I said, this
Did
film
you drive
is
home for Christmas?
a book ended by Christmas songs.
Yeah.
So there is... And, they even have a scene where it's like, for some reason, the police officers are singing carols. But then, like I said...
by the random woman.
Really bad.
By the
really
random
bad.
woman poking him in the stomach with a nightstick.
Yeah.
And just
do
do
be
it
better.
right.
Be better. But like I said, it keeps coming back to that. And, it speaks, I think, to the kind of unique nature of the character, especially for an 80s action movie. That his theme tune, usually you think of like these characters having big bombastic theme tunes. He's just like really melancholy. It's like, you think of... It's like, it's quite sad, isn't it? But it absolutely works. Even the abundance of sax. If you told me how much sax is in this film and I hadn't seen it, I'm like, that probably sounds like too much sax. But yeah, it works for this film. And there's also a song in the credits, a Lethal Weapons song, which is actually really bad. But that's pretty par for the course for these kind of films. But that's pretty much it for the soundtrack. So the next one's usually...
We kind of bypassed Love and Hate. Are we going to carry on with that one? Or are we
I mean, we can do it quick. I mean, just if I read mine out super quick. I mean, I love Riggs and Murtaugh. They're absolutely the heart and soul.
So are they 1 and 2, or are they?
No, they're just together.
Okay,
There's just one thing, Riggs and Murtaugh.
Okay.
We've already mentioned it. The hair. Absolutely
Love
the hair.
the hair.
Love the hair.
Yeah.
And literally just talking about the score, I actually think it brings a huge amount to this film and again gives it a kind of unique edge amongst, other 80s action films. Because as good as even Die Hard is, it's a pretty standard score.
Yeah.
This one stands apart from all the others as being something totally unique. In terms of hate, plot is in it's rubbish. General is in he's rubbish. And we mentioned it briefly at the start. I hate the fact that I even have to think about the whole Mel Gibson thing. I'm just sad that he was an asshole because I want to love, because I love him on screen. I think he's an absolutely fantastic director. I don't want to have to think about him being like a racist anti-Semite. So yeah, that's my other issue. But you guys go for it.
I love where Gibson lives, where Riggs lives, just away from the beach. Just his dog crosses the road. It's so like idyllic. It's lovely.
Idyllic.
Idyllic. I do not think that word means what you think it means.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, it's lovely. I like where he lives. Randomly, Riggs' ass is pert.
It's a lovely bum.
Yeah, it's a nice ass.
It's a bum you can be quite proud
it's
of.
a good ass, yeah. Riggs and Murtaugh as a couple, really good. I can't really pick 5 with this one. I mean,
we're supposed to pick 3.
It's 5 usually. 5, 11, 5, 8.
No, it's
You're the one who came up with this. Listen to the previous
100%. It's 3 I love, 3 I hate.
Oh, I
Every
don't like it
single
when
time.
Mum and Dad fight.
It is. I'm like, how many are you going to fucking name? It's always 3, dude.
Listen to previous episodes. It's 5.
I guarantee it's 3.
Okay.
I'll guarantee.
All right, let's compromise. Go for 4.
Well, he's already got 4, so let's call it a day then, I suppose.
I hate the fact that they're all in the bathroom with Murtaugh. I think it's creepy. Like,
it's a lot, yeah. I like to think of them as being a happy family, but yeah, if you want to put a dark twist on it,
put a lock on the door, it's fine. The general, I think he's pointless.
Yep.
Absolutely pointless. And I'm with you, the plot. Like, the plot is a standard made-for-TV film that doesn't need to... Like, it carries no weight to the film.
It really doesn't. It just gets him from A to B, that's about it.
Dave, we put you on the spot here, so you don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
You definitely don't have to say 5 things.
To be honest, I think you've covered most of them. I think
I'm playing an episode after this.
I love the buddy thing. The two of them together are brilliant. I love Riggs' dog. I think not so much in this film.
He's
Again,
a lovely dog.
I'm thinking of the series. The bond he has with his dog is brilliant. The general is absolute dog shit. There's no point in him. He's not threatening. He doesn't actually add that much to the story.
Well, it's just it feels like they split it out just because they're like, well, we've got Riggs.
They need a boss, don't they?
Well, they need someone for Riggs to
Joshua
fight and
can't be the boss. He's the bad guy.
Well, no, they can, but I think they look at it and it's like you get it in a lot of films. Where if they say 3 characters...
It's like Commando. It's like the general guy in that, he's in charge, but he doesn't do anything.
But in loads of films what happens, say you've got 3 leads, you need 3 threats, so they can all go off and have their boss fight at the end of the film, essentially. And that's all this is. They were like, well, obviously we're going to be setting up Joshua to fight Riggs, but while this is going on, we need Murtaugh to do something. And so he has the fight with the general.
An equally oldish guy.
Exactly.
Too much.
But I think that is the only reason that it's split out into 2 characters. Realistically, for plot purposes, the general and Joshua could be the same person, but it's just because there's a Riggs and a Murtaugh.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, so let's move on to Legacy, because Legacy is a big one before we go into video games.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to cover that, mate?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously the sequels, I think most people would agree that they're of somewhat diminishing returns, but I will argue the fact that it's slightly diminishing returns. I mean, I even like the 4th one. I think generally speaking, that
one?
The 4th Lethal Weapon, you're not buying it, you're not saying there's a 4th one?
There's no 4th one.
I actually think the 4th one's fine. It's not a great film. It's not a terrible film.
Butters?
Yeah, like you said, it has issues. Frog.
They fuck you with cell phones.
Although I always think that I remember watching it and being like, I was like bizarrely touched by the really dopey Froggy story at the end. I don't know, that seemed to work for me. But I was just like, I thought the 4th film was okay, but it's the weakest of the 4 without. In the same way that Die Hard 4.0 is okay-ish. You keep looking at each other. You know this is a podcast, right? So, yeah, but like I said, we've already talked about the fact that a lot of people consider the second one to be the best. I mean, personally, I prefer the first. I think you wanted to mention the TV show, which is a good thing, because I know jack shit about the TV show.
So the TV show...
I know it's got Damon Wayans in it.
Yeah, Damon Wayans and Clayne Crawford. And
until he got kicked.
The first season was...
There's 2.
Yeah, but the first season was really good.
Yep.
And then the second season, there was animosity between the two of them, which led to Damon Wayans bitching and moaning about Clayne Crawford. Clayne Crawford then was fired, and they brought in then Sean William Scott. It was more along the lines of, as we've already said, there was a lot more race within the TV show. But the first season...
more modern issues, wasn't it? So they brought up the modern issues, and obviously race became more of an issue. So they did that. But I think the biggest problem was that the actors didn't get on. Like in the film, they really, really liked each other.
You can get away with it in a film if actors don't like each other because you're only filming for, say, a few months. And it's like, even if you don't like each other, you can battle through. But if you're doing 3-4 seasons of a TV show, you're around each other all the time for large
The big
chunks
issue
of the
was Crawford actually directed one episode.
So there was an animosity between them because Crawford, as you said, directed an episode. And apparently he didn't follow guidelines
gun
on a
safety,
stunt.
wasn't it? Yeah, the safety,
and there was an explosion and shrapnel actually struck Damon Wayans. And Damon Wayans complained, and then there was a recording, quite like the Christian Bale recording for Terminator Salvation, where it was Damon Wayans calling him, basically along the lines of, "You're a pussy."
Yeah.
Do you want to just get on with it? Not Damon Wayans, sorry, Clint Crawford calling Damon Wayans a pussy. Just get on with it, move on. But... yeah, again, Damon Wayans classed himself as the star of the film. I'm the one who was first cast. Because, Clint Crawford was the last person cast as Riggs. But
Damon Wayans is a bigger star.
His hair was the biggest star of that show.
Because we did, didn't I? Every week I would tell you that Clint Crawford's hair should have its own credit.
With his big dirty boots and his flopping hair.
Because his hair acted separately to Clint Crawford as Riggs. It needed its own credit. But... Season 1 was great. Season 2 and Season 3 had diminishing results.
Yeah.
But all in all, but they can't really move on. As you said already,
it's finished now, isn't it? TV
yeah, it finished
got cancelled.
2018, 2019.
Put it this way, I watched the first 2 series, really enjoyed it. And then I got halfway through the 3rd series and it's not... Who took over?
Sean William
Scott.
And it's not
his fault, but... the show died when Riggs died. It was never, ever the same show.
They killed Riggs off, didn't they?
Yeah. And before that...
it just couldn't...
I always wonder with that, because I wonder if people get really connected to a character or to the show and they can't see beyond it. But I was just out of interest. I was like, I wonder what the reviews are like before and after he left. And if you look at IMDb, most of the episodes are in the 8s and the 9s, really high for season 1 and 2. Good. And then season 3, it's 5s and 6.
Yeah.
It really does drop off.
But before the story, though, it dies. There's nothing to go on.
But also, before season 3 actually started, Damon Wayans saying, "It's my last season. I'm done after this. I'm quitting." So it's not making it... People are not going to want to watch it because it's going to be Lethal Weapon without Riggs and Murtaugh.
It's not going to work.
Nobody wants it. So that's the legacy. Obviously, we've mentioned Lethal Weapon 5.
Well, and like I said, obviously, I'm keen on the idea. I'd happily watch Danny Glover and Mel Gibson on screen together again. Is it going to work considering their age? I don't know. But
do you know who's doing the screenplay for that? Is it?
I think was it already written because Richard Donner said to him before he died that he wanted Mel Gibson to direct Lethal Weapon 5.
So is it a Shane Black film or?
No, I don't think so. Shane Black didn't do the others though, did he?
He just did the
Lethal
first
Weapon.
one.
His character's based on Shane Black's end, but he didn't do 2, 3, and 4.
I thought he worked on 2.
I don't think he did.
Okay.
I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. But
if we don't get Lethal Weapon 5, if you can find, funny enough, it doesn't actually show up. If you go on to Netflix to watch Always Sunny in Philadelphia, a number of episodes have actually been cut now. But they did Lethal Weapon 5 and 6 on that. But of course, a big part of it was the fact that they did blackface with Rob McElhenney's character playing Murtaugh. And they were actually really funny. But supposedly they're going to be dealing... I think they're doing Lethal Weapon 7 in the later series, season 15, where they actually deal with the whole idea of Rob or Mac doing blackface kind of thing. So doing a twist on it. So that'll be pretty interesting. But whatever your views on it, it's still really funny. Those 2 episodes are absolute gold. But then this is coming from someone who absolutely adores Always Sunny.
I still think if you do it in awe of people, then I don't necessarily think it can be a bad thing.
It's a tricky situation because I don't want to tell people how to feel because I'm not black. But I think some people they just. I know it's crazy, right? It's like The Jerk. It's like some people.
Your viewers are fucked now.
Yeah. It's like, wait, he's not black. He sounded so black. I get it, that whole idea that some people just go off, you can't do it, full stop. But of course, there was a question, if you're doing it with a certain outlook, if you're trying to raise issues, or, it depends, again, how you feel. I watched it, and as a white person with my white face and my white eyes, I actually found it really fucking funny. And it wasn't mean-spirited, but I understand how some people in some countries, they can't move, and we talked about it with the Mel Gibson thing, you can't move beyond the connotations. Regardless of what's happening, you're like, I just see blackface and it's wrong. And I don't want to tell those people that they're wrong. I'm talking purely from personal experience. I didn't give a fuck. I thought
and that's the thing in it. From our point of view, I don't think it's anything in the right way. Because I've done, as you would say, blackface. I've dressed up as Blade for because I think Blade is the coolest.
Well, that is
guy
the
in
thing.
world.
No, I mean, and I don't want to get too into the weeds of this.
This was
but
the last time we have Dave on this podcast.
No. And again, I'm more than happy for people to disagree with me. This is just my personal view. I totally understand. If you're celebrating a character, it was like this kid, there was like a famous picture of a kid going as Les Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Because Les Ferdinand was his
his
favourite
idol.
player.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, a big part of Les Ferdinand is the fact that he is indeed
he's a black man.
And like you said, if you do Blade, but you do Blade with your white face, you're not Blade.
You're not Blade,
Because Blade is black.
You're
And
Neo,
that's-
basically.
it's just
Because it's the same costume.
it's one of those things. So yeah, I
I've
don't
done
go
both.
too far down the rabbit hole on that, but I understand that approach.
Yeah.
That if you're coming at it from your perspective, it's like, well, yeah, I'm celebrating a character that I love. I don't see the issue with it.
No.
But again, not everybody feels the same
Not
way.
necessarily
which is
the right
absolutely
media
fine.
to go into this conversation, but
Well, it's too late. We've already done it.
So moving on to
video games. Well, Ocean Software and Eurocom made a game in 92/93, depending on when it was released, for the Game Boy, NES, Super NES. And it was called Lethal Weapon, but it was very much based and released alongside Lethal Weapon 3, to the point where it's got the Lethal Weapon 3 poster art, only sans Joe Pesci. It's just those two back to back, but without Joe Pesci's little head knocking on the top. And I've always been a bit suspect about Joe Pesci's character in the film, but hey, whatever. In terms of...
comic relief.
It's strange almost that there haven't been more, video games based on the series. But I think we've used this as an example before, but it's just because it's a game I love so much. If I was going to make a game based on Lethal Weapon nowadays, I would absolutely go the Sleeping Dogs route again. Because I'm like, instead of having it in Hong Kong, you have it in LA. You could be both Riggs and Murtaugh. They have different skills, although I'm not quite sure if that works because Riggs has all the skills and Murtaugh's just a bit shit. Or maybe you just do a level where you're just totally underpowered.
He's your computer companion, isn't he?
Yeah,
he gets you along.
And have it like an open world game, but have the emphasis on combat and stuff. Because again, I think I mentioned on previous podcasts, for all that Grand Theft Auto does well, the actual gameplay isn't all that fantastic.
There's not enough story in this for me to be a game.
If you go and play...
You like mine, man.
If you go and play Sleeping Dogs, I'm not sure if you guys have ever played it before.
Yeah, I play Sleeping Dogs. It's really good, yeah.
The combat is absolutely fantastic, and I actually think in many respects it's a better written film, because I think the comedy in Grand Theft Auto games is often quite terrible. So as you said, like, it's one of those open world, you can have story, there will be a narrative, but at the same time the emphasis on the action. So that's what I'd go for anyway.
So I'd go down the Streets of Rage route. You've already said...
Murtaugh in Streets of Rage.
No, you've already said Murtaugh's shit.
I'm too old for this shit.
Well, that's it. Murtaugh's a bit shit. So Murtaugh's the one that gets kidnapped. So you're Riggs.
Oh, instead the girl kind of thing.
Yeah, so you're Riggs, who's got to go through it then.
Suddenly you're looking at a white saviour kind of scenario. I don't know. It's suspect. We've already had blackface over here. I'm not sure we now need a white saviour. What's the final solution, yeah? do we need what's going on?
Oh my god.
Sorry, that took a bit of a turn.
Not a final solution. Jesus Christ.
So, we'll stick with Liam's, because he's currently shut mine now.
Okay, so that's
This
true.
was the last podcast. Nice to see you all.
So before we can... Well, we have to run it later.
Let's rate this thing, yeah.
Rate the
This is
movie.
derailed like fuck, by the way.
I mean, rating-wise, it's... Man, I could easily give this a 5-star because of the relationship.
4.5?
Yeah, it could be 4.5. I'm going to go with 4 stars because, again, the plot's not amazing, but it almost doesn't matter because Riggs and Murtaugh are just so fantastic in it. And like I said, I like Joshua, and that allows you to forgive the fact that the general's useless. But because of those reasons, I don't think I'd give it a 5-star. Would I recommend it? I have done, and I will continue to do so because it totally stands up. It's still a great film. Yeah. And I will stand by the fact that I think it's a legitimate Christmas film. I know people don't consider it in the same way as Die Hard. There's no real reason that it shouldn't be. So, watch it at Christmas. Watch it in March. Who gives a fuck? Just watch Lethal Weapon.
So I would recommend it to others as well. As you've said, it's a great film. You can watch it whenever you want. It's one of the action films. If you're saying top 5 action films or anything like that, it's one that you would recommend. But I'd give it a 3.
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah.
A 3?
Yeah. So I don't think it's up there with Die Hard, but that's my personal
but
preference.
Die Hard's a 5-star masterpiece.
But no, absolutely. But like the plot doesn't carry it along. But what saves it, as you've already said, is between Riggs and Murtaugh, is their relationship. So it's a great film, but it's a 3 for me. So
controversial.
Dave?
Almost as controversial as Dave's blackface.
Or the fact Dave is about to say...
I don't want to look like I'm just sticking to Wes all the time, but
Sticking to Wes.
I'll be honest with you. I'm more. It probably goes 3.5. All right, probably in the middle. I think
He's really trying to upset me. 3.5.
I agree.
Just say 3,
Look,
for God's sake.
I love the film, right, and it's a great watch, but it's not in my top 10, to be honest, of films that I would watch. And like you said,
Tough fucking crowd that is. It's not in my top 10 films. 3 stars. 11th on the list.
3.5.
Yeah, anything.
3.5. So I'm in the middle. I agree with you. I think like you said, as a buddy cop film, there's nothing else like it.
Where's the template?
It is great.
100% is the
But-
template. Because
As a story, there's not huge amounts to it, and it's quite generic, and it's it's not a bad film, and I would 100% recommend it to anyone to watch it. But it's not the type of film people are going to watch over and over and over again. This is probably like 5 or 6 time I've watched it, and I still love it, and I do enjoy it. But I just think it's lacking in points, so 3.5 for me.
3.5, no, totally fair enough. Each their own. And as I said, no one's saying it's a bad film.
No, not at all.
Just to be clear, and it is tricky sometimes. We're trying not to rate this based on nostalgia.
Yeah.
What I think about this film, because obviously I've grown up with this film, and as I said at the start, where it's like this part of me which just wants to say 5 star, because unlike you, I have watched this film so many times, and it was one of my favourite action films growing up. But revisiting it and watching it with fresh eyes, I'm like, I still think it's a 4-star film. Very well made. It does have its faults, but everything is kind of that relationship totally papers over the cracks, and not just the relationship, their performances. But
very good.
Like, I know I reacted like, "Oh, go fuck yourself." Jokes aside, I totally understand someone saying in this day and age you go and watch it. It's like, yeah, it's a 3-star. It's
I
an
just slightly
enjoyable
disagree
film.
to you. I think the second film is better. I think there's just more
Well,
to
you're
it.
not on your own on that at all.
I
Loads of
do
people
believe
agree.
as well that the second film is probably better.
I've got a
And I
funny
like the
feeling.
third film as well. There's again. I think that's a bit more of its time, and it's a bit more kind of pandering to crowds as opposed to this one, which is a film is set. It's going to do what it's going to do.
Well, the third film in particular is when it started to feel a bit more, not like a family film, but it definitely, it leaned more into the comedy.
It was starting to
With
get
Joe
into the PG-13-ish.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, as we've gone through these podcasts, if we started rating them the same all the way through, this would be a boring podcast. The fact that we have
100%.
different opinions, I think, is what serves...
But I think we all agree it's a great film.
Yeah.
It
lacks in certain areas.
Yeah. And of the 3 of them, I think it's good the fact that we all enjoy different ones, different amounts,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, a 3-star review is always a bit of a weird, or 3.5, whatever. It's always like, you can have a really disappointing 3-star film because you can expect so much, but as we've said so many times, you can watch a film and be like, oh, it's got its faults, but it was still really fun watching it.
Yeah.
It's just a 3-star film, but that's absolutely fine. Or realistically, a 4-star film. I would go with me. But no, as always,
send your votes in, fans.
Yes,
Let's see where everyone agrees.
Not with Liam.
I don't think me giving Lethal Weapon 4 stars is particularly controversial.
No, not at all. I mean, like I said, each to their own on this, and 3, 4, 3.5 is
yeah, it's not like
it's
Crying
not a
King.
million
We're not
miles
going
away.
2 versus 5 or any of that.
So, at this point of the podcast, we usually tell you what's coming next, but this is the last episode of our Christmas spectacular, as Liam's been calling it, because we couldn't say...
He doesn't sound convinced at all, does he?
Because we couldn't say quadrilogy. So we would usually tell you what's coming next, but we're actually going to take a break for the new year. So we'll be back in January. So keep an eye out to our social media, and we'll drop a hint to what's coming in January for our
Because
first...
I literally don't have a clue.
No,
I don't think we've decided for one.
but
so
it's your first. It's your choice next. So you're going to plan. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm underprepared.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will pick a film in the next couple of weeks. We'll put it on Facebook. So keep an eye out.
I'd
But
imagine it'll probably be something like Frozen, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I do legitimately like Frozen, so that'd be absolutely fine. But as always, I hope you've enjoyed these Christmas specials we've done. I hope you've enjoyed Dave coming along for the ride this week.
Thanks, everyone. I've enjoyed myself.
Oh, awesome. But yeah, as I said, thanks for listening, and please join us again in a few weeks. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye now. Say bye, Dave.
Bye, Dave.
Oh yeah, and before I forget, because I always forget, here's Rob telling you where you can actually find us.
Yeah, so we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Hey You Guys 80s or at Hey You Guys 80s. And we're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any emails, any recommendations, or any reviews you have. But whilst we're on about that, wherever you get your podcasts, please also smash the subscribe button. Yes, I said smash.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Leave us a review and leave us some 5-star ratings as well. But make sure they're 5-star ratings.
Yeah. We're not interested in 1 star, 5 star. If it's not going to be 5 star, don't go smashing anything. Just leave your opinion to yourself. 5 star ratings only. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.
Are you